The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the Atlantic Major Series 2.4 Hours of Spa. My name is Kelly Dahl. Alongside me is Andrew Cardinal and Trevin Valderrama, and as always, we have Cisco Scaramuzza getting you the picture. Well, it's been a little while since our last endurance race, but here we are at one of my personal favorite tracks, and it's going to be a very challenging GT3 race. It's a very difficult track, but we have certainly some of the best drivers in iRacing ready to take this track on. And I think it's going to be a very fantastic race. Andrew, we've seen these guys in the GT3s a few times before, and some of these drivers are just extremely quick.
Yeah, you know, sports car racing is a big, I guess, staple of this series in general, of the majors in general, and we've seen it multiple times. I think back to Coda, I think back to Nürburgring, and now here we are at Spa, a very historic track, a very fun track, but also a very challenging track. And if Nürburgring wasn't hard enough, this place is really going to test these drivers today.
Well, we'll take a quick look at your points. Mike Kelly continues to lead the points championship with his teammate Riley Thompson nearly 100 points back. Joshua Kanata follows in third with Thomas Peterson and Carl Burke rounding out your top 5 championship contenders. And Mike Kelly, he's done extremely well on the ovals. The ovals have kind of been his thing, but even on these road courses, he's still been quite consistent as well. And Trevin, I'd expect to maybe see him running at least around the top 10.
Yeah, and as you said, he has been so good on ovals and on road courses. You know, these drivers are the best of the best here. They go through different kinds of races week in, week out, and, you know, it's just amazing how these drivers can adapt to it. And Mike Kelly is our only repeat winner, so it makes sense that he is on top.
And not only is he a two-time winner, it's not like he's been dominating every single race. It's just that the fact that he's always up towards the front, always top 5, always top 10, just kind of hanging around. And that's really the point of this series, is just to be able to find who can be the most consistent and best all-around driver on the racing sim. But at this moment right now, we'll have to take a look at the practice times, and currently topping the practice times, that's Michael Lane in that number 62 machine with a 2:16.5. Eric Smith, though, not far behind with a 16.7, and Pete Harrod as well with a 16.9. And looking at our times, the top 5 actually are all within a second. So even actually the top 6 with Ross Banfield barely sneaking in there with a 17.575. So I'm expecting this to be a very tightly contested race for this whole nearly 2.5 hours.
Yeah, Kelly, these guys are going to be on top of each other all day long. And, of course, the first lap, going up to Eau Rouge, that's going to be the biggest one. Because, of course, these guys are all very even in some respects up in the front. And going up through Eau Rouge the first couple of times, especially that first lap, it's really going to be interesting to see exactly how these drivers attack it. Obviously, you don't want to go up Eau Rouge side by side if you don't have to. So we'll have to see who gives, who doesn't going off into lap 1.
And also, one of the things about the major series is they always do have an incident limit. We don't ever see these guys ever get very close to it, but Spa is notorious for having very difficult track limits, and where these drivers could possibly score a few extra incident points. But Trevin, do you think any of these guys are going to have to worry about getting disqualified?
You know, as an oval racer particularly, I would be concerned. So maybe the people that fare on that oval side would be a little bit more concerned, because as you said, there's not a lot of runoff room, because even if you get one tire on that rumble strip in some parts, you will get an off-track incident point. Now, looking at the practice incident points as they're wrapping it up with only a minute left to go, I'm seeing around 20, even 42, 58, and, you know, that's just what these drivers have to look out for. So we got to watch for the 42 incident of Lion in 181, and Mike in the 77 because they have the both highest incident points, but also I'm seeing a lot of lower numbers like 17, 5, 0, and 1. So maybe those are the road racers, and then we got a mix of some oval racers in as well.
Well, it also could be some of these guys are just testing out those track limits. It's been a 2-hour practice, so they have racked those incidents up over a long period of time, and hopefully these guys will go a bit easier when the race comes around. But as we're starting to wrap up our practice time, we're getting ready to go racing, and I'm sure a lot of these guys are shifting their focus towards the race.
Yeah, you know, you got to psych yourself out for a place like Spa. It's not just a matter of jumping in the car like if you're at Daytona or something, where it's really just a matter of jump in and it's like riding a bike. Spa has a different kind of feel to it seems like, in every sector. You go up Eau Rouge, very fast, very tight line. And it's still a very tight line through most of the circuit, but you get down towards like turn 5, 6, 7, that complex, and really just changes into kind of a more slow-paced, just trying to hit the apex kind of track.
Well, the time has run out on this practice session, and we're going to get ready to go to the grid. Going through your starting lineup, though, the number 32, Eric Smith, he's going to start on your pole. Pete Herod going to be starting in second. Third will go to Riley Thompson. Fourth, Michael Lane. Ross Banfield in fifth. Chuck Chambliss will be rolling off in sixth. Claude Belval in seventh. Eighth goes to Richard McClure. Thomas Peterson in ninth. And Mike Kelly rounds out the top 10.
P11 will go to Brandon Whitworth. P12, Lonnie Finch. Stephen Wang. P13, Carl Burke. P14. P15 will go to Nick Kuhn. P16, Marcus Tracy. Banfield will be P17. B18, Mike Golingy. P19 will be Lynn Kenchel. P20 will be Daniel Knight.
Joshua Kanata rolling off in 21st. 22nd goes to the 4 of Danny Resser. Jose Pabon rolling off in 23rd. 24th, Rory Collins. 25th, Oliver Mandrish. Simon Thorns rolling off in 26th. Jason Wallet goes off in 27th. Eddie Hawks gets 28th. And 29th goes to George Angus. Rounding out the top 30, though, will be Eric Klein.
Terry Wellman will be P31. P32, Jerry Foberg. P33, Samuel Dowdy. Jonathan Diggs, P34. P35, Marshall Williams. P36, Craig Hawkins. James Down will be P37, and rounding out your 38 car field will be Julian Hulix.
Very strong field, a very large field as well, with 38 cars that are finally all rolling off towards this bus stop chicane. Eric Smith leading this basically very anxious, I would assume very anxious field as we get ready to go through this tight starting sector, is watching for that pace car to go off and waiting for that green flag to roll. Eric Smith going to be on the right side of the track, getting the inside line in towards the La Source hairpin. Pace car is off, and now we just await the green flag from the starting stand. However, it's a very long ways ago because it's, the endurance pits is after La Source, so we'll have to, the first run through Eau Rouge is going to be where we're going to see where these drivers are going to split up, as a few of them are getting a little bit jumbled up through the La Source hairpin, as a lot of cars going at a very low speed. Green flag is out, though. Eric Smith making the run, getting a fantastic start. Pete Herod, though, he's going to have some problems from Riley Thompson, a little bit of pressure, but Thompson making a good call to just ease off before going into Eau Rouge, just to make sure they don't go side by side throughout this first lap. But now he's got that long straightaway to just kind of draft Pete and see if he can make a move before going into this next corner. And he's going to pop to the outside, actually, to see if he can get towards maybe the inside line on the final corner of this chicane.
Very clean lap number 1 here up through Eau Rouge. Still side by side for second place. That's Herod and Thompson. It looks like Herod going to take the spot for now. He started second, keeping second right now from Riley Thompson, but a very clean lap 1 despite that unique Spa start where you actually start after turn 1 here.
Yeah, Bruxelles here. This turn is a really interesting turn. The drivers have to be so careful going through it. One little misstep and you're going around in that turn, so that's really the part. Turn 10 is not where I favor my passing zone. I just try to survive that area and then continue to work on. So all these drivers doing a very good job. Eric Smith still out in front of everybody, leading with a solid gap, but you know, a lot of drivers are trying to chase him down.
Ross Banfield was able to get around Michael Lane early on. Now he's trying to put some pressure on to Riley Thompson, but Riley Thompson's still trying to chase down Pete Herod. But Eric Smith already starting to open up a bit of a gap over the rest of the field at this moment, and he's going to be trying to jump out to an early lead and try to keep that lead throughout the whole race. But that gap already trying to get a look at that, and that's 0.37 seconds on the timing at the moment. So Eric Smith, if he can just keep watching those guys trying to battle in his mirror, he'll definitely be pulling away.
Yeah, Spa is notorious for, you know, splitting up cars that may be even as you can be. It's just a matter of this place is really tight. You have to really take a tight line, and lap 1, lap 2, especially when you're still side by side battling for everything you can get, you have to really lay back a lot, give and take. And if you give something to somebody now, maybe they'll give it to you later on. But it really spreads this field out, no matter how even it is. And we're seeing that already. A 1.2 second gap from the leader, Eric Smith, back to Pete Herod after just 1 lap around Spa.
Yeah, these drivers are doing a fantastic job. Everybody really, you know, giving each other some space. It is a long race, 2 hours, 24 minutes, almost 2 hours and a half. But, you know, these drivers need to get in that mentality that it's going to be a long race. You know, there's going to be a lot of chances to continue to catch up, and you know, these drivers all know what they have to do. Some drivers just doing a little bit of a points day, some people actually wanting to go for that win. It's a little bit of a gap from 1st to 5th, but still all in that same frame.
Yeah, there's still a very tight group up front, though, with Riley Thompson leading this kind of pack almost, as Pete Herod kind of opening up a bit of a gap. Ross Banfield still trying to chase down Thompson, with Michael Lane filling up his rear view mirrors. A lot of Mercedes up front. There is still a BMW up there as well. And Ross Banfield trying to do some work in that Z4 and keeping himself within this kind of a pack of McLarens that are up front. Or sorry, McLaren's Mercedes cars that are up front.
Yeah, something that was interesting is just a couple of weeks ago at the 24 Hours of Spa hosted by iRacing, it seemed like a lot of drivers actually opted for the Audi. I'm not sure, actually, that might not, it should be available, I would imagine. I don't see any Audis in here yet. There's one, actually, as I switched to the same old Audi. But it's really interesting to me that I see no Audis up here in the front of the field. It's just, like you said, Mercedes and a BMW. It's really a switch from just a couple of weeks ago, but I guess maybe there might have been another BOP update. I'm not sure. I don't think there was anything that was changed, though. So, like you mentioned, though, Kelly, a lot of Mercedes up in front. Aside from that one Ross Banfield, number 31 BMW. Pretty interesting to me, but as we now go through 2 laps, Eric Smith coming into turns 18 and 19 now, and that's 2 laps in the books.
Coming up to the chicane to complete lap number 2, and then that hairpin. These drivers just got to watch out, you know, seeing how many cars are going through the chicane at once. A lot of give and take, but I'm sure later on through this race, a lot of people are not going to be so nice, and it's going to be a little bit, you know, a little bit more tight and compacted. But here we go, going through that hairpin. It's so tight, going so slow.
Might Go Lightly goes way off in this chicane, and he's now sideways, pointed, basically trying to get himself into some clear track to get back onto the racetrack, but he's lost a ton of ground as he went straight on through the bus stop chicane. I guess just kind of missed his braking point.
He was actually missing a wrecking Marcus Tracy out of turn 17.
Well, that'll definitely explain why Michael Lightly has also maybe has a bit of damage as well, but definitely not a good situation for Go Lightly to be having kind of a mistake like this early on, and he went way off into the grass. We'll try to see if we can get a replay up. He actually got into that Tracy, so we'll have to take a look at what happened to Marcus Tracy as well. It looks like he just kind of lost it coming through the that fast left-hander beforehand, but Go Lightly got a bit of that accident as well, but Marcus Tracy just a completely wrecked Mercedes at this moment.
Yeah, the 83 just came through Blanchimont turn 17 there and completely lost the back end, and I had a lot of troubles with that myself a couple of weeks ago. It's really hard to nail down the back end of a Mercedes, it seems like, through turn 17, although he did end up tagging the curb there on the inside of the corner, goes for a spin, head on into that wall, comes back across the track, and over the front end, like we said, of Michael Lightly's Audi, who ended up missing turn 18 as a result. But other than that, I actually saw one Ferrari spin out behind that. Everything else looked clean.
Yeah, great job done by each of these drivers, and I'd like to point out, guys, that they do have one fast repair limit, so both of those drivers probably wanting to take that fast repair and knowing that they do not have one left and they're already using it up less than 10 minutes into this race. So that's got to be a heartbreaker for them. But, you know, they know that they have to be a little bit more conservative going around this spot track that's ever so difficult.
Taking a look back up towards the front, Eric Smith has opened up a massive gap, nearly 2 seconds over Pete Herod, and now there's more trouble in the bus stop chicane. We got another car that's run through, and that's Michael Lane. Michael Lane spun that car around now and trying to wait again for some clear track to get himself back in, but Michael Lane was kind of in that battle for third, and just as he was trying to take, we'll take another look at a replay, he was trying to get to the inside of Ross Banfield through the bus stop chicane and just couldn't quite keep the car planted down, ended up just spinning that car around in the runoff area, and now he's trying to get himself back onto the racetrack and get himself back into position. I think he was up towards 4th or 5th or something, and now he's down all the way in 17th.
Yeah, he was just 5th the previous lap around, and I think he had actually made the pass for 4th over Banfield. Ended up just completely bailing on turn 19. Felt like he maybe didn't have the correct line, was going too fast. So a smart move on his part. It is going to cost him a ton of time if someone comes out of the pits there. I think that's Marcus Tracy. But that's going to cost him a ton of time, of course, but a smart move to just, you know, sacrifice the time early rather than junk the car.
Yeah, and you know, these drivers do such a great job, and you know, as you said, he had passed for 4th position in turn number 7, so I think he was trying to get another position going into that chicane, but you know, it's really difficult going to pass there. It's so thin, so tight that one little mistake, you're going to be going around. You know, Eric Smith, I'm getting reports that he does have a little bit of damage. Not sure where it's from, but you know, we'll continue to monitor that, as that is a Mercedes out in the lead with a commanding almost 2-second lead. But you know, these drivers just do such a great job. I don't think that'll be much of an issue for them.
Yeah, I'm taking a look closely at that Eric Smith's number 32 machine. Not seeing any damage at the moment, but there definitely is a risk on these cars of just hitting those curbs a little bit too hard, maybe bending something up on the bumpers, or maybe even bending something in the under tray of these cars. But at the moment, he's still running a very strong pace, still keeping even pace over Pete Herod, but they're definitely opening up the gap towards 3rd place, and that kind of battle for 3rd is kind of opened up after Michael Lane went running off through the bus stop chicane. So now Ross Banfield still trying to catch up towards where Riley Thompson is, and definitely has gained a lot of ground throughout the course of this most recent lap.
Meanwhile, Pete Herrod's still keeping pretty much up with Eric Smith, at least for our purposes here. He's only 2 seconds back of Eric Smith and only lost a couple of tenths that time around, so he's keeping up for the most part. And of course, as Trevin touched on not too long ago, this is a 2.4-hour race, you know, whereas the WEC race, sorry, not WEC, Blancpain race is 24 hours. This is kind of cutting that down to just about a tenth. And it's still a long race, though. These guys really have to manage everything they've got. They're going to run about 1-hour stints. So the pit strategy is going to be a thing to keep in mind. So quite honestly, Pete Herod could come in, play some pit strategy early, and just try and get off sequence with Eric Smith, trying to maybe make it so he doesn't have to sit there and chase that 32 car quite as much, and maybe put pressure on in his mind, even subconsciously. It could be a good idea for him to get off sequence, but either way, keeping up with that car so far, whereas Riley Thompson, Ross Banfield, Richard McClure all falling back seconds now, 7 seconds back for Riley Thompson.
Yeah, and going to the later parts of this schedule, this is race number 9 on the schedule, a little bit more than halfway through, so some of these drivers really need to get in gear and try to continue to push for that top spot of Mike Kelly in P number 1. So these drivers just need to have a good racing finish. Mike Kelly currently sits in the top 10th place exactly, right where he started, so we're going to have to monitor him on how much progress he does make throughout the field and who will be catching him by the end of this race.
Yeah, Mike Kelly still putting up his, as usual, consistent pace. At the moment, he's not very high up in the field. Well, I'd say top 10 is pretty good for a 38-car field. He's not running in the battle for the race lead, nor do I really expect him to be at the moment, but he's definitely one to kind of watch to see if he can keep up his consistent pace.
Yeah, of course, one of Mike Kelly's biggest attributes so far this season is that he's been here for every race, where some drivers like Brandon Whitworth, even Joshua Kanata, haven't been here for every single event. Mike Kelly's been here for all of them. He's just been running consistently, maybe not even winning. He's only got those couple of wins like we mentioned earlier, but he's been here. He hasn't been wrecking himself. He hasn't been getting in bad situations. He's just been here ticking off laps, ticking off events, and that's what's putting him in such a big points lead so far, almost 100 points for that number 3 car as he runs 10th.
Yeah, just looking through the field, we have got a good race going on for, I believe that's P3. Riley Thompson and Ross Banfield still fighting it out, about to go up into the, I believe that's called the En Rouge, and then onto the Kemmel Straight, going to turn number 7. So we'll see how this works out. Maybe we can get a little draft going down, working to that corner. But, you know, these drivers do such a great job. And, you know, I love this. And, you know, some of these drivers in the back had that mentality of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, you know, get into the top 10. Because there are 38 cars on this grid today. So, you know, these drivers just back in the, you know, 38th position at the start of this thing needed to get to the front quickly, because, you know, once you get lost touch of that lead area, it gets a little harder to catch up, because you're just having to drive through so many cars, and it's really hard to make up time.
Yeah, it definitely is very difficult to make up time. You can't just kind of hope for maybe a little bit of bad luck for the race leader, because unlike ovals, he's not going to be encountering lap traffic as much as he would on a road course as he would on an oval. So really it's down to just these drivers to find a faster and more consistent line. And Riley Thompson, it's going to be very difficult for him to do right now, because he's got some heavy pressure from Ross Banfield. Ross Banfield almost getting into Thompson as they go through that corner there, getting onto this kind of a back straight section, and that looked like they nearly made contact in turn 15 now. So that is a very close call for those two cars.
And of course, unlike the 2018 24 Hours of Le Mans, this BMW is actually a lot smaller than the rest of these cars. So it feels like the BMW can actually really attack at the rest of these GT3 machines, whereas the Mercedes is a big boat, has really big brakes, really big motor. That BMW is, you know, just as fast, but it can really attack into a corner, through a corner. It just seems like, along with the Ferrari, those two cars can really attack mid-corner a lot better than the Mercedes. If you're in the Mercedes, you got to rely on the straightaways and out-braking whoever you're racing.
Yeah, and, you know, you see this a lot in the braking sections. You know, they're getting so close. It's really who can get back to that gas quicker, because you're seeing now going to the upward chicane to the Kemmel Straight, you know, these drivers do such a great job congesting together in those turns, but as soon as they hit the gas, everybody starts to spread out. So, you know, these drivers need to get into a little bit more of a groove going through that, you know, braking area. You see them now clumping together. Some drivers digging it in a little bit more deeper than others, but we'll have to see how this works out for them.
Banfield still attacking Thompson, is trying to see where he can get a move to make or to get into the inside of where that Thompson is, and getting right up to his bumper now as they go through turn 10. Is Banfield just putting a ton of pressure, just trying to see if he can make Thompson kind of make a mistake here. But Thompson running a very consistent race, almost dipping a tire into the grass there as they make the run towards turn 12. And this very difficult double left-hander, they got a spinner right in front of them. That looks to be Lynn Kinchlow, who was a car that was going a lap down and now is spun on the inside of turn 12. Lynn is keeping that car there until the track is clear, thankfully, but that will not really affect anything right now, as Banfield's still going after Thompson.
And that 181 doing a good job of just staying off the track for now. And as you mentioned, as we've been talking about, Ross Banfield just on the attack, trying to get after Thompson. But we also have a battle right behind these two that's shaping up. Richard McClure in that Mercedes trying to hold off Claude Belval in the Ferrari. And again, it seems like the Ferrari can attack just as much kind of mid-corner as the BMW. So watch this battle to shape up, as these two cars are going to have different advantages in different places. And they even have a Mercedes right behind them in Chuck Chambliss.
Yeah, and, you know, here we go, fighting again for that position. Riley Thompson on that right side, then Ross Banfield on the left side, trying to get everything done that he can, but it does stay the same way that it has been for now, going into the hairpin of La Source, down to the start-finish line area, and then up at Rouge, so we'll see how this works out for them going. You see them clumped together in that hairpin because they go so slow through that section of the track. We'll see how it works out for them coming up into En Rouge.
Well, the high-speed corner of Eau Rouge there, and at the top, Radion, but it's still going to be it's not really much of a passing place, especially in these cars that relatively don't have very high downforce compared to maybe the F1 cars. So GT, it's not a place you want to go side by side. Now down the Kemmel Straight, going to draft as Banfield drafting as much as possible to kind of catch back up to Thompson after that attempted move. He lost a lot of ground after that attempted move into the bus stop chicane, but now getting right back up to the bumper. Going to try to look towards the inside there, going into the last section, corner of Lacombe. But there the door was shut right in front of his face as Thompson still holding off Banfield for the time being.
Yeah, I really think Ross Banfield is just kind of playing with Riley Thompson right now, playing with his prey. And obviously, he'll make the move to actually get by him before McClure can catch him. But I really think he's just kind of toying with him right now. You know, obviously seeing what you can and can't do, definitely some early race strategy there. But also just kind of saying, hey, here's my nose. Hey, I'm coming. I want to pass. But not forcing anything too aggressive, trying to make Riley Thompson screw up. And so far, he hasn't gotten it to totally work, but he's definitely, I think, gotten inside of the driver of the 58 just a little bit. Meanwhile, these guys have fallen to about 12 seconds back of the leader. Eric Smith continuing to lead now over 5 seconds over Pete Herod.
Yeah, and, you know, these drivers, again, as I said, they know that they don't have a lot of time to catch up to the race leader. You know, some drivers are already a minute back, almost 2 minutes back. So, you know, it's only going to progress as the race goes on, and we're only 20 minutes, excuse me, into this race here tonight. So, you know, these guys just need to pick up the pace a little bit more if they want to catch Eric Smith and Pete Hard. So, you know, these drivers just have to keep on keeping that mentality up. Ross Banfield trying to catch Riley Thompson, as well as Richard McClure and Claude Belval.
Yeah, McClure and Belval are just kind of watching what Thompson and Banfield are doing, and I would assume as soon as they see an opportunity, they are going to pounce on it. But at the moment, Banfield putting a ton of pressure on Thompson still, just trying to force a mistake. And I think if he's not careful, a mistake may come from himself as well, as we get ready to go for lap number 10 for these drivers going back into Eau Rouge.
8 laps in the books, and Banfield really drove it hard into turn 18 last time around the first corner of that bus stop chicane, and it almost proved pretty bad actually for that driver, as it was McClure trying to get by him. Almost kind of stuck his nose there off into one, thought better of it. Now Belval actually gets by McClure down the Kemmel Straight, so Belval going to take that position over, and that was actually just given to Belval, so big move there. So now Claude Belval can start going on the offensive here, trying to run down Ross Banfield as they go into the midsection of this track. Yeah,
and I think the midsection of this track, turn 11 to the chicane in turn 19 is really the meat of this track. This is where you can pass the most. You just got to be aggressive in most parts. 13, 14 is really where you're going to set them up, and then 15, maybe going into 16, is really the place where I like to pass on this track. So just continue to watch that, and, you know, continue to observe how these drivers are going to be going, because really turn 19 to turn 10 is really where they're just going to be spreading each other out and trying to gain them on each other.
Well, a little bit of a wobble from Thompson, that kind of looked like there through that corner, is Banfield still all over the rear bumper of that 58 machine, and that's that 58's rear bumper is probably going to be burned into the mind of of Ross Banfield by the time this race is over, because unless he can get around him, it looks like he's going to try to make maybe a move here through this fast back section of the track. And again, not another corner you don't really want to go side by side through, is that kind of little kink there of turn 18, and now he's going to be on the outside, go towards the bus stop chicane, and maybe he might be attempting a crossover. Is now look at Claude Belval. He's trying to get himself involved into this, is trying to make this a 3-way battle for third place.
Big save there from McClure, but Banfield's not going to make this pass out breaking the Mercedes. The Mercedes has huge brakes on that car, just straight up. It has huge brakes, and you're not going to outbrake Mercedes off into turn 18 here. And you mentioned it, Kelly, a really bad idea to go side-by-side into 16 and 17 in Blanchemont. I'm not really sure why he did that. Kind of just hurt him going into 18. Almost gave Belval a chance to pass. So I think Banfield is now getting a little bit antsy behind Riley Thompson. So we're going to have to keep watching this battle for a while and see if the 31 makes a mistake here, because he's really starting to get desperate trying to get by that 58 car.
Yeah, he definitely is, but desperation, you know, it can get you at the end of the day, maybe a big payoff at the later ends of this race, but now you got Claude Belval right behind you and Riley Thompson right in front of you, so these drivers just have to make sure, especially Ross Banfield, he doesn't do anything too desperate too early. Now, say we're at an hour and 50 more minutes into this race, yeah, you could try something out of desperation, but not only less than half an hour into this race, as we've already seen some drivers have a little bit of incidents, you know, into each other and having to use their quick repair already, as we see them off the grass, and most likely that is going to be an incident. So, you know, these drivers just have to know also 35 incident points for the whole entire race. So, you know, these drivers just need to make sure that they're going to be staying on track and know what their limits are.
Yeah, just behind those drivers, Rich McClure losing another position to Chuck Chambliss, and Thomas Peterson nearly got around him as well. So McClure losing a bit of speed, it seems, and he's got to definitely get himself back on track here, or else he's going to continue his march towards the rear. He is still up a couple, at least one position now from his starting position, but at the moment, it's not that he's not moving in the direction he definitely wants to be going.
And as far as the DQ situation with the incidents that we keep bringing up, you know, I see a lot of these guys dropping wheels between 16 and 17, and in some other places, and Eau Rouge is a hot spot for it too. As Banfield is looking to make another move here, you can't outbrake a Mercedes in a BMW, not going to happen. It's right back in behind him for the second half of the bus stop, and is going to now try and dig for him, or for that position once more off into turn one. But back to the DQ situation. Apparently there were 7 disqualifications in the Euro split earlier, and I think these guys are going to run about 60 to 70 laps, somewhere in that nature, just based on how long a fuel run lasts here. So, I mean, they really have to start being careful, being really mindful about what they're doing here. I watched Belval drop a wheel that last lap around between 16 and 17 down to Blanchemont. So, really, these guys are going to have to start being a lot more mindful. I see them being really lenient with some of these track limits, and that won't last for long with an incident limit here at Spa.
No, it really won't. And, you know, we talk so much about how this track is so difficult to tame. You know, it's just so easy to go off track and overrun in a corner of this track, because, you know, as soon as you get out of the groove a little bit, you're going to be on the rumble strip and into the grass most likely, or even in the sand trap. So, you know, there's just not a lot of runoff room. So these drivers just need to make sure they know what their racing limits are after that 2-hour practice session that they had earlier before this. Some of them raced all 2 hours. Some of them came in a little bit later, 30 to 10 minutes. So, you know, some of these drivers know what they have to deal with. Some drivers don't. And we still have a 15-second gap to third and a 7-second gap to second from Eric Smith.
Yeah, Eric Smith has just kind of been quietly running his own race ever since the first lap. I think the first lap was the only point he ever had any sort of pressure put on him, and that was really only through the first couple of corners. After they got through Lacombe, he just kind of just took off from everyone else and has not looked back since. So Eric Smith currently running a very dominant race, and unless some bad luck befalls that 32 machine, I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, it's going to take a lot to unseat a leader here at Spa once they can get away. It's going to take some sort of pit strategy.
Oh, here comes Banfield through Blanchemont. They're going to go side by side once again through that kink there, and that's going to cause that 31 machine to go way wide, but he is going to get the position finally going into the bus stop chicane. But here comes Riley Thompson once again, going to dive it up the inside, and now Belval trying to get himself into that fight as well, but Thompson going to get the third place back from Banfield after Banfield made the move throughout one of the final corners, and Thompson just diving it into the bus stop chicane to get his spot back. So just a fantastic battle between those two is going to continue.
And further behind, almost contact actually from Thomas Peterson, who is trying to dive to the inside of Richard McClure. He got there for a moment, now down to Eau Rouge. It's going to be McClure back in front of Peterson, but a good call there with Banfield. I didn't even see that move shaping up, but Banfield actually tried to, he got the pass done, first of all, by going way off track, and that is legal. You don't get a penalty for it, but he actually tried to defend off into 18, and I thought it was kind of funny. Really, Thompson just put his nose there and said, I'm coming through, and no contact was made. He just kind of intimidated Banfield in there into 18, and, you know, obviously Banfield doesn't want to get run over. Not that I think Thompson would, but he kind of just sat there almost like Dale Earnhardt and just said, no, I'm getting right back by.
And as I said before, 11 through 19 is really the meat of this track, where you want to go. He did pass from 16 to 18. That's really the risk reward this section of the track. You know, you're gonna be running a risk trying to pass right there, as we just saw, but it does pay off. He just needs to hold on to that position a little bit longer against Riley Thompson, and thankfully Claude Belval really couldn't take advantage of that situation. So, you know, basically back where we were a lap ago. So we'll see how this all works out for them.
Yeah, Banfield still hasn't given up, though. He's going to continue the pressure on Riley Thompson and going to have to kind of rethink his strategy of where to pass. And it looks to me like they're catching up to another car. That's Marcus Tracy, who's going off track. He's a car that's one lap down, going to stay out of the way of these guys that are battling for position, but almost getting tagged there, it seemed, by Claude Belval. And looks like Tracy's definitely slow on track. I'm not seeing any damage to his car, but it looks like he's just kind of slowing up while everyone tries to get by him. So some good driving from Marcus Tracy to be aware of where he is on track and where everyone else is on track to really not cause any problems.
Chuck Chambliss trying to make a move on Claude Belval, runs Belval a little deep off into 18. Belval hanging on to that position, though. I noticed that at 15, it really seemed like Chuck Chambliss just had a great drive down off into 16 and 17, almost got that position, really forced Belval's hand there, and Claude did a great job of hanging on to that spot, but definitely feeling the pressure right now from Chuck Chambliss in that Mercedes.
Yeah, feeling the pressure indeed, but, you know, Chambliss needs to continue to press on, and, you know, this top 4 cars in this little area that we got going on from 3rd to 6th just continues to press on. It's really the best battle that I've seen here tonight, so we'll see how this works out. Chuck Chambliss continuing to engage, gives a little shove to Claude Belval going into turn number 7. We'll see if he capitalizes on anything. No, he does not. We'll see. No, he's just going to fall back into line. We have a little lap traffic in front, getting out of the way. Very nice. And continue to press on is Chuck Chambliss against Claude Belval. We'll see how they go into turn number 10. Everybody just continues to stay in line. We'll see how it works out through 11 to 19.
And these 4 cars are all bunched together, but it's almost like it's 2 separate battles. Banfield trying to pass Thompson and Chambliss trying to pass Belval. Looks like Belval just he's so focused on trying to defend against Chambliss, he just isn't able to get himself into a position to go after Banfield and Thompson. So they may be within a second, but these are 2 entirely separate battles, really.
Yeah, of course, Banfield's getting the big toe off of the Mercedes and Thompson right in front of him, and Belval is having to deal with a Mercedes right behind him. Again, the Mercedes have a really just powerful motor to get down the straightaways a little bit faster than the rest of these cars, so you really have to be able to maximize the momentum you keep up through a corner if you're not in a Mercedes. Even if you are in a Mercedes, you just have to maximize your momentum, especially out of 15 and Eau Rouge, of course, down the Kemmel Straight. So you really got to be careful there, and it's looking like Belval is definitely having to deal with Chambliss having that power advantage down the Kemmel Straight off into turn 5. But for now, things have actually spread out a little bit. Ross Banfield has lost track of Riley Thompson by just a hair, not by much, and Chambliss had to fall back for just a moment there. But other than that, these 4 cars, like you mentioned, Kelly, in their own respective zone together, but in 2 separate battles, and they've really started to drive away from those like Richard McClure, Thomas Peterson, Brandon Whitworth, and they still cannot catch Pete Harrod or Eric Smith as Eric Smith continues to lead.
Yeah, and the thing that goes along with that is that they continue to battle amongst themselves. They aren't really driving to catch Eric Smith, which is no problem with that, but, you know, again, the more you're going to battle with each other, the further away Eric Smith is going to get. So, you know, you just got to keep that in the back of your mind going forward. And, you know, I don't think they really care because they want to get every position that they can. And by this point, Eric Smith has already checked out from the field, a whole entire 18 seconds back from where this 4-car gaggle has started. So, you know, maybe they have a chance of getting to second place of Pete Harrod, but maybe not. You know, it's really hard to tell. We still have a good chunk of this race to go, 14 laps into this race. But, you know, continue to drive on from these drivers is really cool. You see these drivers go from 2 separate packs to 1 in a braking section and then just spread out again, which is really cool to see.
Well, Banfield's still trying to catch Riley Thompson, almost getting into his bumper there on through turn 10. Now as they go through this tricky double left-hander, is Banfield or Thompson starting to open up a bit of a gap once again. Banfield kind of backing off, and Banfield really has to think about where he wants to make his next move, because he's made a couple of attempted passes on Thompson, but nothing has really stuck so far. So Thompson's got to figure out, or Banfield just has to figure out where he can make a pass and really make sure that pass sticks for sure. As now we'll go through this fast last section towards Blanchimont. It's now a bit of a better corner exit for Thompson, but Banfield is going to have that toe to help catch him up. It looks like Belval and Chambliss both have backed off just a little bit of gaps between themselves and these front 2 that are battling it out so hard.
And Thompson being a little bit defensive, didn't really have to, though. He still has a pretty decent gap back to Banfield, still has a decent little bit of a hair of a gap. But now Belval starting to enter this 3-car, well, now a 3-car pack. It was 2-car before, as they're actually starting to leave Chambliss just a little bit. Seems like maybe the 14 is starting to fall off just a little bit as we get through a bit of a tire run. And, man, Banfield almost got right back to Thompson's rear end one more time there. Very close, didn't quite get him, though.
Yeah, very close to each other. A little bit more spread out between Belval and Chambliss, going through a Rouge up into Kemmel Straight through 7, 8, and 9, and then the tricky turn number 10. But here we go. Claude Belval going around Ross Banfield, that is, maybe just letting him by, knowing that he has a pit stop coming up. Kelly?
It looked like Banfield just didn't quite have a great run through Eau Rouge and Radion, and that will allow Claude Belval to get it right back around him. It looks like Banfield's not going to take it lying down. He's putting the pressure right back onto Banfield. But at this moment, Eric Smith is leading the race, and we're going to take a quick step aside for a break of our own. But don't go anywhere. You are watching the Atlantic Major Series 2.4 hours of Spa on LSRTV.
Mission 22 is dedicated to unite the country in the war against veteran suicide. Bringing our veterans home is every American's job. Ambassadors are creating impact in their community across the country. Mission 22 has comprehensive treatment programs for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury at no cost to veterans. This is an American issue. No matter where you stand, there's a place for your support. Visit mission22.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the Atlantic Major Series 2.4 hours of Spa. Well, we just had some very interesting developments during the commercial break. A few drivers nearly wrecked a few times. Chuck Chambliss ended up getting around Claude Belval. Riley Thompson still sits in third, but our driver that was battling so hard for that third place, Ross Banfield, he decided to cut into the pit road, and he's still working on his pit stop right now, just now leaving his pit box. As these pit stops are extremely long, nearly half a lap it seems, for while the other drivers will be able to clear the drivers that come into pit road. So Riley Thompson now, he's now trying to hold off Chuck Chambliss, who's putting on a little bit of pressure, but definitely nothing compared to what Banfield was doing earlier.
Yeah, and now that we actually had that moment just a little bit ago during the commercial break, it really seems like things have calmed down, unfortunately. Belval had a good catch, and now he's kind of actually a little ways behind Chuck Chambliss, and really things are just spaced out. So, time to look around the field a little bit. I think that's pretty well warranted at this point. I think we've kind of been keeping an eye on Mike Kelly a little bit. He's ninth, a little ways behind Brandon Whitworth. And the 3 doesn't seem to be any winning car by any means, but he also seems like he has an idea of at least what to do here to just, I think, like the Major Series account was saying on the stream, just play the long game. Just play the season game to try and get this championship. Really good job so far this season from Mike Kelly, and he's just continuing that same kind of motif, I guess, of his to just play the season-long game here.
Yeah, and these drivers just continue to push on. We saw a little bit of aggressiveness over the break, and we lost our minds in the booth. But it's just the name of the game. Claude Belval with a great save going out of that last hairpin, in La Source. So, that just shows the amount of pressure that these drivers are under. Now he's under pressure from Thomas Peterson going into turn number 7 of Lacombe's, and now just going to try and go through Bruxelles as well. And these drivers just continue to press on, and Riley Thompson now under attack from Chuck Chambliss into turn number 10. A little bit of contact, quite possibly, into turn number 10, trying to get him a little bit sideways coming off that corner, but does not happen. But these drivers, again, just trying to press on. And we saw Ross Banfield pit, and I thought it was kind of weird that he was letting Claude Belval go by, and I just figured maybe he's going in for a pit stop. That lap he went in for a pit stop, so maybe he just wanted to get out of that little area of cars to kind of avoid getting wrecked, because it was getting a little bit testy there, Kelly.
And maybe he also felt like he was being held up a little bit by Thompson, and maybe he wanted to get some open track and hope that when the pit stop cycled around, he'd be in front of Riley Thompson and up into third place. But we're going to be waiting quite a while, because I think the pit window is very wide for this race. And here comes Chuck Chambliss trying to get that draft off the corner, getting almost getting into Riley Thompson, but he's now got himself on the right side, and that's the side you want to be on going into the chicane. If he can hold it through the turn 18, not going to quite be able to. Going to go wide and get a little bit loose, but I think he is going to hold on to that car, and he might have been able to avoid even getting an incident point there, but it was definitely very close, and that's a difficult place to pass. You want to be on the right side to when you go into the bus stop chicane, but going through turn 18 there, it's very hard to be able to hold on to it on the outside.
Yeah, rather optimistic passing opportunity there, or I guess try there from Chuck Chambliss. I don't think that's the greatest way to do it. Certainly if you can get it down, if you can make it happen, it's a pretty good place to do it as far as just having a leg up on the field. If you're able to make it work and keep that car planted, by all means, go for it. We saw Banfield do it earlier on, but the Mercedes is quite a bit heavier, really seems to slosh around, especially when you're still, I guess earlier in a run and you have more fuel in the back of the car to slosh around. But it's still an optimistic attempt there from the 14 of Chambliss. But hey, kept both cars on track. That's what matters, really, is, even if you try pass, as long as you get the cars on track and keep the eye on the prize here of 2.4 hours, then you're doing something right at the very least. And now Belval going to get after Chambliss, gets that spot back. Here comes Peterson as well now in the number 9. Doesn't quite get that spot, but definitely going to go nose-to-tail now with Chambliss through one of the most technical sections of the track.
Yeah, going through 11 and 12. Here we go to see how it goes, and maybe we're going to see another pit stop done by another pit stop done by Chuck Chambliss. But these drivers continue to press on, and it's a great job done by all these drivers, and we're seeing shades of what happened before Ross Banfield took off. We have really two groups of cars battling it out. Richard McClure, Brandon Whitworth, and Thomas Peterson were able to catch up once all of that happened. So now we have basically a 5 to 6 car battle going on, but really all in different groups. And then Mike Kelly also looking to catch up to where they are, about 4-second disadvantage to him. So, you know, just watching these drivers take advantage of every single opportunity that they've been handed to them is pretty neat to see. But, you know, we still got a long way to go here.
Yeah, certainly a long time left in this race. We're only just under, we're about 40 minutes into this race, and out of a 2 hours and 24 minutes, Chuck Chambliss now trying to, we're assuming he's going to be coming down the pit road this time around, but we'll take a look. Yeah, actually, he is going to stay on track, so maybe he just didn't get a good exit out of the corner and felt that it just wasn't great to fight Belval. And now look towards the front, Eddie Hawks there. He's having to pull, he's a lap car that's 1 lap down, having to pull off to the side towards La Source. Definitely a hard place for Cup to try to stay out of the way as you go from the very far outside of the track all the way down towards the wall on the apex, and just able to squeeze himself through there and not hold up too many cars as Belval still trying to chase down Thompson. Thompson's starting to open up a bit of a gap. That time at the line it was a second, so Belval has got to figure out a way to catch up to. Oh, Thompson slows. Thompson slows way down, and he must have gotten maybe a slow down penalty through Eau Rouge. And yeah, he definitely did. Taking a look back at Eau Rouge, he got all 4 tires off towards the inside, so there is definitely a slowdown penalty that happened to Riley Thompson there, and that's going to cost him, looks like, 3 positions.
Yeah, I've been noticing Belval and Thompson are being quite aggressive at the top end of Eau Rouge, and I figured it was only a matter of time until one of them felt the effects of that. But that's not the first time we've seen Chambliss let Belval by. We saw it earlier on down the Kemmel Straight, and he did it again a lap ago. And I really think it just comes down to, I think he feels Belval is just such a much better car right now. He's just letting him go and, you know, maintaining his race course. This is a 2.4-hour race, and at this point in the season, you don't necessarily need to go win, so you can, you know, do all right with just points to try and better your position in the standings overall. So I think he was just letting Belval by again just to kind of put himself in a decent position, and maybe as well, you know, let Belval get after Thompson a bit, especially with how aggressive Belval is being with the track limits. We might even see the 56 get close to DQing himself, and possibly even either have to lay way back so he doesn't get any more incidents at some point, or end up getting disqualified. It's just a reality with this incident limit, guys.
Yeah, and that's really what I love about this series is they put an incident limit on. If you hit that incident limit, you're going to be gone. So, you know, it's really cool to see. You can't just continue to go off track and make passes wherever you'd like going through 16 and 18 all the way up to 19, using that off-track area, because then that'll be used a little bit much. But, you know, these drivers doing a great job using that spot up for the most part, and I believe Riley Thompson just got a little bit wonky into that chicane right there, let 2 cars by. No, he just let them by, so we'll see what his stand is for the resuming parts of this race. He drops all the way to 8th place.
Yeah, he went into the lap 19 in 3rd place and is going to enter lap 20 all the way back in 8th, so definitely a terrible lap for Riley Thompson. One definitely to forget for him, as he's going to have to try to shake that off and now get himself back into this race, as he's now got a long ways to go, almost 5 seconds back from where Claude Belval is in 3rd place. So really a tough situation for that 58 machine.
And as that goes on, and as the action kind of lulls here, do want to quickly just go back to Eric Smith, who has now got almost a 12-second lead over Pete Herod. This guy is literally in his own zip code right now. I don't see anyone forward or behind him for quite a ways. He's just out here kind of in no man's land, just leading this race, doing a great job. And this isn't the first time we've seen this on a road course in the Majors Atlantic Series. We see this a lot. We saw it at Silverstone. I believe it might have been Eric Smith again. So, you know, it's a matter of getting out front and staying out front, and so far Eric Smith doing a great job of it, ahead of Pete Herod again by almost 12 seconds now, and it's another 12, 13 seconds back to Claude Belval from there. So just kudos so far to this 32 car, but he still has quite a ways to go here, guys.
And if you guys remember, back on July 15th at Silverstone, he had won the old-fashioned race that we had back there. Eric Smith did, and you know, he just did a great job. He checked out at the beginning of that race and never looked back. Always had a great gap to another person. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing that again tonight. And we are actually already seeing that tonight, so we'll see if he can keep that gap. This is a considerably longer race, though. I believe that race only lasted, hour 45 to 2 hours. Now we have another 30 minutes on to that, so we'll see how this works out. Always an opportunity in every single corner. They have about 21 opportunities a lap to mess up into a corner and, continue to, break that gap of how far he has behind them.
Well, as the action quiets down for a moment, I'd like to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors for this race, Mission 22. According to a Department of Veteran Affairs study, each day over 20 veterans take their own lives. But together we can win the war against veteran suicide. Join Mission 22 to let our vets know that they have an army behind them. Your donation dollars assist them in getting veterans treatment when they need it most, right now. So go take a look at mission22.com, united in the war against veteran suicide. But now, as we get back to the on-track action, Chuck Chambliss has closed up the gap to Claude Belval, and Belval pretty much in that almost, I think, lone Ferrari in the field, and definitely the highest placed Ferrari, sitting in third place, just surrounded by Mercedes cars. And Chuck Chambliss still just trying to find a gap to get around Belval, but Belval just holding tight onto his line.
Yeah, again, it really seems like Chuck Chambliss is kind of waiting for his moment with Claude Belval. He's let him by twice now, at least that we've seen. It could have been more. And it really just seems like he trusts that 56 car of Belval to be faster. And maybe Chuck is just trying to maybe pick up on something, or just let him by and follow him around. Just try and, get a little bit of toe off of that Ferrari. It's a little bit more difficult off of a Ferrari than a Mercedes, I guess. Mercedes punches a big hole in the air, but actually Chambliss gets right up on that curbing and almost got that car a little bit free. Does it again through 13. Keeps it under him, though, just being very aggressive with those track limits. A little further back, we finally see an Audi, but I believe that's a lapped car, and it is. That's Danny Resser in the number 4 car, just ahead of Thomas Peterson. The next car by position, he's actually top 5 now, and this is important for the points battle, remember, because Thomas Peterson, I believe, is still second place in the points to Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly running away with things, but if something happens to that 3 car today, Thomas Peterson could be in a really good position to capitalize on that here, Trevin.
Yeah, indeed, and just watching these drivers continue to battle it out. They're going through a lot of. I believe somebody's pitting right now. Can't really find who it is. Thomas Peterson pits as well. I think that's Brandon Whitlow. Somebody else pitted before them, but not sure if that car was on the lead lap or not. Car. Okay, so that was a lap car. So 2 lead lap cars will be pitting right now. But, these drivers all know where they have to be to win this race, and that's really at the front. But it's really going to be difficult to catch up from 30 seconds down or even a minute down. We still have 24 cars on the lead lap. Marshall Williams currently sitting 24th, and that's the last car, and he started 35th, so a great day for him. Currently, right now, Ross Banfield sits 19th, so we'll see how he cycles out as we continue to see more pit stops proceed on. And it is a half a lap stop, so these guys need to make sure that they are in and out very easily and not wasting any time.
Yeah, Ross Banfield is way back there now at 19th after his pit stop, but as mentioned, he has already pit. All these guys in front of him, I believe, still have to come down pit road, so that will get him a lot of ground. But you got to wonder if him taking that pit stop early, if he was being possibly held up by Thompson, and will maybe be able to catch up some ground. And Mike Kelly, he's now gone up to 7th places. I think a few more drivers. Yeah, Brandon Whitworth is down pit road, as well as Thomas Peterson. Both of those drivers are getting their service at this moment, so that has moved up Kelly to 7th position at the moment. So a few of these drivers now starting to think that their pit window is open.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing these guys come in around the 50-minute mark. I actually like the move from Ross Banfield to get off sequence earlier on, but these guys can actually run a little bit longer if they want to. I'm surprised they're coming in about 10 minutes early, but they can run less fuel now. That's kind of the benefit to doing that. They can run a little bit less fuel and just try and kind of even out the stints they run. So, we'll see how they do here with that option. Obviously, less fuel means less weight, and they can run a little bit faster on the straightaways and don't have as much weight to loosen up their rear end through the low-speed corners, even the high-speed corners especially, actually, through Blanchimont, like right here where we see Mike Kelly go through. obviously got to see what happens. Mike Kelly, I think, is in a pretty good spot, again, to just nail down a top 10 like he usually does, and continue to work on his points lead a little bit. Even if Thomas Peterson finishes ahead of him and gains some points there, it's not going to be nearly enough to make even a dent in that points deficit as Claude Belval hits the pit lane.
Yeah, and, you know, just goes along with having to be consistent in this series, because you still have, I believe that's 6 races left here at the Pac Majors Series, so, you know, continue to be persistent, finishing in good distance from Mike Kelly, hoping that he doesn't have a good points day yourself. You know, that could really catch up, but I'm not sure if it would be a close race by the end of this thing, because he has been really consistent himself, and I don't think that he's going to be slowing down anytime soon. But, you know, again, just watching all these drivers transition from car to car, track to track, and continue to be so good at each and every single one of them is really a testament to how good these drivers are.
And really the goal of this series is to find the best all-around driver, and that's kind of why the trophy has been named the Mario Andretti Trophy, because he's been considered one of the best all-around drivers to ever live. And these drivers, we've seen them in everything from Formula, or I think we'll see them in Indy cars one more time. We've seen them in NASCAR, Cup cars, and we've seen them all the way down into the Silver Crowns we saw earlier on. So definitely just a very interesting mix of cars and disciplines that these drivers have to adapt to. And really, it's been kind of the teammates of Mike Kelly and Riley Thompson that have kind of excelled here throughout this whole series.
Yeah, the Major Series really includes anything that you could almost imagine on pavement. The only thing we need now is some dirt racing, maybe a couple of rallycross tournaments. But no, for real, I mean, this series really is good at finding somebody who is great in every domain. You know, because, I mean, go back to a couple of stock car races previously in the season, and I believe Mike Kelly was one of the top guys there. He won the Silver Crown race at Phoenix earlier in the season. You know, we started off, I believe, with the Daytona 500, maybe. It's been a really long season for these guys. They've done a lot of different racing, and you know, it all comes down to these last couple of races, including here at Spa, something very challenging. And if you're an oval racer coming into this series, coming into this race, for example, you really have to just kind of cut your losses here. If you're not that good in road racing, that's fine. If you're an oval racer, just go ahead and make sure you keep that car on track. Make sure you get less incidents in the rest of the field. Make sure you don't put that car in the guardrail or the tire barriers, because if you just do that, even if you come home a handful of laps down, you'll be coming home, and that's the important thing. So even if you come home 5 laps down at the end of 2.4 hours, at least you were still running. At least you beat out those guys who were aggressive early on. At least you beat out those guys who got themselves disqualified by running too hard. So you just got to kind of cut your losses, and a lot of these guys, I think, really do a good job of that. And by the end of the season, when we come to a place like Spa, even if they don't start out the season being very good on road courses, coming from oval, or, you know, vice versa, by the end of the season, they really pick up a lot of really good skills, and they actually could be competitive literally on any track they put them on here.
Yeah, and, you know, it's just great to see all these drivers transition from race to race, and, you know, it's usually just 1 race a month, maybe 2, but, you know, it was starting all the way back from February, and this is our 9th race, so, you know, not a lot of races, but when they do have races, they are big races, and, you know, a lot of practice goes into each and every single one of these races. I do like to point out that we do have 5 racers that have pulled their cars behind pit wall. Either that's from damage or they have hit the incident limit. So 5 cars have already bit the dust, and we still have 18 cars on the lead lap. That's Thomas Peterson, last car on the lead lap, all the way in 18th. So, you know, these drivers just continue to press on. It's really gotten spread out from where they all are on track right now.
Yeah, but Eric Smith continues to just absolutely dominate this race, a full 12 seconds over Pete Herod, who's kind of battling with some lap cars at the moment, as he just got around Julian Huxley, now trying to get around Marshall Williams, who's almost getting into Marshall Williams, actually. But Pete Herod has got a long ways to go if he wants to catch Eric Smith. That time at the line, 13.8 seconds back from Eric Smith. So definitely a massive hill for him to attempt to climb.
And that deficit's only going to grow pretty much, because you're not just going to be able to change something, say, in 1 or 2 corners and suddenly be faster than a guy like Eric Smith. Obviously, He's just got a handle on the car, got a handle on the track better than Pete Herod and the rest of the field right now. So you're really going to have to work at it, chip away at it, and if not, try some sort of pit strategy, which we haven't seen out of the 21 car yet, and we're actually coming up on the end of the pit window. You're going to have to work on something through this next stint to just try and start chipping away, so that if something might happen to Eric Smith, because you're not going to run him down at this point, if something happens to that 32 car, you have to be close enough to at least try and take advantage of it. So say a lap car runs him off the track, he spins out real quick, gets back going, 15 seconds might be the threshold that you want to stay within. So I think Pete Herrod's really going to have to work here through this next stint once he comes into pit to just maintain that gap now. He's lost enough time. Just maintain, how far back he is. You can't lose too much more. You're going to eventually lose touch with that leader. And if something does happen, if he does get run off the track, you're not going to be able to catch him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a great point. You got to make sure that you're always within striking distance, because it is a tricky track. And as I said, you have 20 to 21 turns a lap, depending on how you look at it, to mess up or to have an incident, or just continue to race on. And after an hour of racing on this track, you kind of get into that rhythm of wanting to shut down, kind of getting that tunnel vision. This really, from hour 1 to hour 2 is really where you're going to want to watch these drivers to see how they act, because they've already put in 1 hour time and now they have another hour and 24 minutes to go. And these drivers just need to make sure that they're always on their toes for anything that is about to happen to them in front of them, anywhere. The lap traffic could come out of anywhere at any time, so you need to make sure that they're all aware and ready to pounce.
As the saying goes, complacency kills. If these guys start to slack off a little bit, they may lose control of it. Richard McClure actually going through turn 18 there, clips the inside apex, which upset his car. Nearly lost it when he got onto the rumble strips on the outside, but able to hold on to it. And that's definitely going to wake him up just a little bit. As we were talking about, you have to stay laser focused at all times. Even though that this is a very long race, you have to always be ready for anything that could happen to these cars, or else you start to slack off for a moment, your car could be spinning towards one of these walls.
Yeah, you cannot lose focus at a place like Spa, and we've seen that with Silverstone, Nürburgring, and plenty of tracks before, Coda even. You can't lose focus. You have to just, keep yourself pretty much, I guess as focused as you can be, almost tunnel vision on your screen ahead of you, or Oculus Rift, or whatever it may be, and just make sure you're hitting every one of your marks every time around, because if you miss one, it's going to get you out of rhythm. You miss another, suddenly your whole lap is thrown away. You might have 2 extra incidents that lap, and that's going to count against you the rest of the race. So you really have to, like you say, Kelly, make sure you're almost tunnel visioned in on your screen, just making sure you do everything right for these 2.4 hours. And that's why a lot of teams will, when it comes to a 24-hour race, not run, double, triple stints. They end up just keep, pulling guys out as much as they can, just because it is really difficult to stay focused for that long and still be able to drive efficiently. So, 2.4 hours is a little ways to go for these guys. We'll see how things get towards the end, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some mistakes just out of fatigue at the end of the race.
Yeah, and the worst thing to be brought to your screen with from your tunnel vision is a car spinning and going into the wall. So, I've been there before, and it's really easy to lose track and lose sight of what really you're doing. And, just continue to press on, continue to log laps and try to do everything that you can, and then all of a sudden you're just in the wall and your race is over. But these drivers are doing such a great job. Only 5 cars have been retired, and we only have 11 cars on the lead lap because we're going through cycling pit stops, but everybody else doing such a great job. I'm really liking seeing this. You got a good race going on. Try and keep Pete Herod inside that 15-second mark, as he just went a little bit outside of that. We'll see how that works out next time by, but still, loving to see all these cars give up all of this track position from their lap cars. Just a lot of respect going on at Spa.
Yeah, the lap cars, they're definitely been keeping an eye on their relative boxes and just keeping track of where the lead lap cars are, and it seems like everyone has moved out of the way for a lead lap car that's come up behind him now. Chuck Chambliss, he's trying to work through some lead lap cars of his own, as he's currently trailing behind the Audi of Jose Pavon, and I don't think Pabone's going to give him much trouble at all, as Pabone's going to stick to the inside line of the track, allow Chambliss to actually get a little bit of the draft there. But there goes Chuck Chambliss around, and he's currently holding on to third place at the moment, and definitely a good position for him to be in. He's now 6 seconds up from Richard McClure, but nearly another 15 back from Pete Herod, so he's kind of just in a no man's land right now, as we still have a number of drivers that haven't gone to pit road yet.
Yeah, if you take out the lap traffic that these drivers are going through, really the entire top 3, almost top 5, is kind of just in this little bubble where there's no one else that they're racing against. They don't have to worry about, you know, chasing down a car necessarily, just making sure they, you know, tick off laps and make sure they, you know, keep the car on track. Don't get too many incidents. You just, you know, make sure you run the line. Don't run wide here. Don't run wide there. And really, aside from that, you can't do much else. It's actually Chuck Chambliss going to use the flashers on a lapped car there. That is a Ferrari piloted by Julian Huxley, the number 322. Gets right out of his way. Good job there. But, you know, this is kind of crunch time for the middle part of the race where you're not necessarily going to have people around you, but it always seems like somehow by the magic of endurance racing, right at the end of the race, you're going to find somebody that you're racing against, Trevin.
Yeah, and, you know, just watching all these relatives go through, you know, drivers continue to make passes on each part of the track, and, you know, it's really cool. I'm loving this racing. You know, we still have another hour and 20 minutes of this, so, you know, just watching how these cycling of pit stops are going to go through and see how these drivers are going to continue to press on, because they still do at least have one more pit stop in their back pocket when they choose to elect to do so. Is really going to be the interesting part of this race, because, you know, it could change up some strategy for some guys and can continue to press on.
Richard McClure and Riley Thompson both coming down pit road this time by, and I'd expect to see a lot of the remaining drivers to pit at this moment. Chuck Chambliss has come down pit road as well. And now as we cross that 1 hour mark, Eric Smith also as well down pit road. So now Pete Herod's taking control of the race lead for the time being, but it seems like every other driver in this lead group is coming down this time. Probably another couple are going to be coming down next time by, as we pass this 1 hour mark, as we get towards this the midway point of the race is when these drivers feel like they should be coming down to pit.
Yeah, Pete Herod getting a chance here to get a lap led. Not sure it's going to help him too much in the grand scheme of things, but, you know, that's definitely something to keep in mind here, that Eric Smith completely undercut Pete Herod there, but also, could Pete Herod maybe have been running map 2 for a little while here, maybe even map 1 at one point, to try and save some fuel, maybe make this a one-stop race? It could be the way to go, considering if you only give up, you know, so many seconds, say about 20 seconds per stint, you're not giving up the entire lap or so that you'd be giving up from pitting. So, I mean, it's a possibility. If he runs to about an hour and 12 minutes, there we go, he might be within the realm of making this on a one-stop race.
Yeah, and, you know, that's just that goes along with the strategy that is here today. You know, anybody can do anything at any one time, and you know, different maps, saving a little bit of fuel here and there, maybe, you know, coasting into the corners and just continuing to save those tires can really change the outcome of this race and really the outcome of your pit strategy. It's really cool to see how these drivers are continuing to, you know, change up their racing. You know, we still have 10 cars on the lead lap from pit strategy and everything, but, you know, it's really cool. We're going about halfway, and, you know, I'm just loving seeing all of these racers continue to do their thing.
Pete Herod now down to pit road, and I think that will pretty much be the rest of our leaders as well. Carl Burke is down pit road, Michael Kelly is, and I think at this moment everyone now has pit, so we'll have to see how things are going to shuffle out. And one to keep an eye on is Ross Banfield. Where is he going to come out in relation to Thompson? As I think Thompson is coming out of pit road now, and Banfield is currently going through, I think that's turn 12, and I don't know if that unlapped or pretty much unlapped him from how far back he was. And if he got around Thompson there, it's kind of a bit of a mess at the moment.
Yeah, Banfield into turns 12, 13, 14, 15, that complex at that end of the track. And as you mentioned, Riley Thompson now into 5, 6, 7. So we'll see exactly where that puts the number 31. It might actually really just settle things back out to how they were for the most part. Obviously, Banfield, though, could run some faster laps on newer tires than the rest of these guys. So I probably could see Riley Thompson, some of those guys start to catch back up to Banfield throughout the run. Obviously, just, good tires versus old tires. And at this point, Ross Banfield's on some pretty old tires. He'll be pitting it within about 20 minutes, I think. So be interesting to see exactly what he does here. We'll have to wait for the timing and scoring to sort itself out as he comes to the line here in just a moment. But really interesting to me that the 21 car, Pete Herod, pitted when he did, considering if he runs pretty much exactly what he just ran, he'll be pitting with just 12 minutes to go, and that's only, I think, 5, maybe 6 laps. So that's pretty interesting to me that he decided to pit as late as he did and not go for that one-stop strategy.
Again, it's really interesting to see all these drivers continue to, shake it up. We've seen a driver pit early on in this race. We're seeing a driver pit usually where they should be, and, a driver pit later on in this stint. So we'll see how it works out for him in the long run. Switching up to, all these drivers going through and, just waiting for this really pit cycle to cycle through and see where everybody comes out into this race. And, here we go.
Well, as at the moment, last time at the line, Ross Banfield was scored as the race leader, so move Banfield up towards the top as he's now, I think, 8 seconds ahead of Smith at the line that time, and Pete Herod was still in pit road as he went by, so that allowed him to, basically, he unlapped himself and got onto the lead lap throughout the whole period of that pit stop. So Banfield's call of pitting early on in the race has certainly worked out for him at this moment, as we were wondering if he was going to be able to get himself back up into third by doing that early on undercut. And not only has he moved himself, he's actually moved himself past third all the way up into first to pass Eric Smith, who is just miles ahead of everyone else as we went into this pit stop cycle. So definitely an interesting call from Banfield, but the question now is Banfield going to be able to run towards the end of the race, or is he still going to need one more pit stop before this is all said and done?
And that's proving to be a great strategy call for the 31 team, but he does still have a pit stop to come, and again, we should see that in the next 20 minutes or so here, Trevin, considering he pitted about 20 minutes into the race. So he only has one more pit stop to go as long as he actually runs this stint out to fruition. As long as he runs it out to about, an hour 6, actually, just like Pete Herod did, he's got this, just a one-stop race from here, just like everybody else. I'm really kind of disappointed, just, for strategy's sake and having fun, I guess, that, we didn't see anybody really go for a one-stop strategy, but to be fair, Pete Herod could still try and stretch that out if he decides to run map 2, map 1 for a little bit here and try and stretch it out to the end. We'll see what these guys do, obviously, but as Ross Banfield officially takes that lead from Pete Herod, Eric Smith comes across the line 6.4 seconds back. We see another driver through the pit lane. Not sure who that was. I believe it's Eddie Hawks, actually. So Ross Banfield, big power move as far as strategy. We'll see how the rest of the field comes through. I think Belval, no, Belval will not take the spot from Herod, but he is definitely much closer.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a little bit harder for these drivers to go off of one-stop strategy here, and maybe if we had 2 hours, maybe it was a possibility, but that extra 24 minutes really puts a wrench into these things, up into into their strategies and everything, because you could stretch it, but it would just be really hard, and you'd be saving a lot of fuel, and it'd be backing it down in that corner a little bit too much, and maybe just after the time spent saving that fuel, maybe you're just giving up time after all, so maybe just going off that two-stop strategy is better. So we'll see how it works out for these drivers. Ross Banfield doing such a great job in first place currently. Eric Smith trying to chase him down from 6 seconds back, and then Pete Herod 24 seconds back, and then now we have everybody back on that lead lap. Now we have currently 24, maybe more, after this lap cycles through.
Yeah, now Claude Belval pretty much almost within reach of Pete Herod. She's trying to chase him down, still just about 3 seconds back at the line that time around. Thomas Peterson, he's trying to hold off Chuck Chambliss, and now Chuck Chambliss got himself into a good position. And now there's another battle for a little bit further back with Riley Thompson and Richard McClure. So now as the pit stops cycle through, everyone's kind of bunched themselves back up together. It almost kind of hit a bit of a reset on this race as we go back to about 40 minutes ago as we had these huge groups of cars battling it out.
Yeah, as the strategy plays out here, we're going to see a lot of things shift, because you got to keep in mind all these drivers are on different points in their stints, so they're all at different points in their tire wear. So, you know, we could see some of these guys that are towards the back of this pack start to move just nice, you know, easily through as the front drivers of that pack start to fall back. I really got to see how things happen. I'm not even sure who pitted where anymore, considering everything seemed to happen so quickly. I mean, we had Banfield pit early, we know that one, and we had Herod pit late, but in between, I mean, we had Belval nearly spinning out of turn 1, we had guys forcing it down to turn 17. It really ended up being a really good first stint for this race, but from here on out, as things start to spread out, pit strategies start to take place. I mean, we're going to be entering a pretty dull section of the race almost until we get down to the end, because these guys are going to be on all different sorts of tire strategies, fuel strategies, everything.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. You know, we're getting to the dull part of this race, and, you know, drivers may just want to take a day out for lunch during this part, and, you know, that's just exactly what you cannot do here. You got to stay focused, stay committed, and make sure that you're going to stay on track, as, you know, Eric Smith is catching Ross Banfield ever so slightly. He's moved down a couple half-tenths of a second, so just watching how each driver is going on is really interesting.
Well, as we get towards our midway point for tonight's race, let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, World of Outlaws, and many, many more. So at the moment, Ross Banfield is our race leader. Eric Smith currently trying to chase him down just 5 seconds back. Pete Herod sitting a little bit further back, 24 seconds back in 3rd place. Claude Belval runs in 4th, with Thomas Peterson in 5th. Chuck Chambliss sits in 6th at the moment. Riley Thompson in 7th. Richard McClure in 8th. 9th goes to Mike Kelly. And rounding out our top 10 at the moment, Oliver Mandrish.
And in 11th is Michael Lane, who we focused on a lot earlier in the race. Had a bit of a spill in turn 18 earlier on, now in 11th place. 12th goes to Brandon Whitworth in the number 377. That's Carl Burke. Nick Kuhn in the 19 and 14th. Then Danny Resser in 15th. Andy Banfield in 16th. Rory Collins 17th. Lonnie Fitch 18th. In 19th we have Daniel Knight. And rounding out your top 20 so far here today, Trevin, is Simon Thorns.
Marcus Tracy will be 21st and your last car on the lead lap as of right now. We're going to move to Josh Hinton on P22. P23, Mike Golgarty. P24, Terry Wellman. Lynn Kinchko will be P25. P26, Jose Padu. George Angus, P27. P28, Jason Waltut. Julian Huxley will be P29. P30 will be Eddie Hawks.
31st at the moment is Marshall Williams. Samuel Dowdy is in 32nd. Craig Hawkins 33rd. He's, I think, our first car that has pulled it behind the wall. The rest of these drivers as well have also called it quits for the day. Eric Klein will be scored 34th. Jonathan Diggs will be our 35th place driver. Jerry Fulcor will be 36th. Stefan Wang 37th. And rounding out the field is James Dowan in 38th. Well, that has been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up for today. And as we say at this moment, we're going to take a quick break of our own. Ross Banfield continues to lead the race, but don't go anywhere. You're watching the Atlantic Major Series, 2.4 hours of Spa on LSRTV.
So what are you afraid of? Those feelings are made up. For anyone asking who is the best, we putting our hands up.
4 more kilometers. Oh, there we go! Take time!
This time, like the last time, I'm moving so fast, I'm ready to ride.
Frankie! Down to the inside of Hoosie's off!
Passenger throws the block, and he will keep him behind him.
My time, none of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down, hands Hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, none of you people can tell me to stop. Turning the track up, I'll never go back down. Hand over my heart, I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, none of you people can tell me to stop.
Mission 22 is dedicated to unite the country in the war against veteran suicide. Bringing our veterans home is every American's job. Ambassadors are creating impact in their community across the country. Mission 22 has comprehensive treatment programs for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury at no cost to veterans. This is an American issue. No matter where you stand, there's a place for your support. Visit mission22.com to learn more.
So what are you afraid of? Those feelings are made of. For anyone.
Welcome back to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the Atlantic Major Series 2.4 hours of Spa. We're going to take a look at our battle for the race lead that's starting to shape up. Ross Banfield is being slowly caught by Eric Smith. At the line last time was 1.6 seconds, and now Eric Smith has got his sights set on Banfield, and I'm sure within just maybe 2 laps time, those drivers will be right nose to tail, and maybe within 1 lap's time, that gap continues to shrink.
And keep this in mind, guys. I mean, Ross Banfield, Eric Smith are both 22 seconds or more ahead of the next car for position, which is Pete Herod, who, as these guys exit turn 15, is going into turn 12. So, you know, that's a really big gap for Pete Herod to try and overcome. At this point, I think it's a matter of just maintaining and hoping that he comes out on the good side of the cycle come the end of 2 hours, 24 minutes to beat out Ross Banfield. Otherwise, he could come home third.
Yeah, and you know, just watching these guys continue to gap themselves over Pete Herod and Claude Belval, Thomas Peterson is just an amazing feat. Ross Banfield now can feel Eric Smith breathing down his neck. He's got basically a mirror full of him. It's only going to get bigger as the laps wear on. Eric Smith has done a stand-up job all night tonight. We still have another hour and 2 minutes to go of racing here from Spa, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold him off for that long. Ross Banfield has done everything he can basically, and I believe he's going to be caught here in a few moments time. going up now Eau Rouge into Camel Straight into 7, 8, and 9. That really tricky quick right-hander to left-hander, then to right-hander again, then to Brussels to the 11 and 12 area. So, you know, really cool to see all these drivers continue to press on. You know, not these two up front have really not let up an inch, and unfortunately Eric Smith is just going to catch Ross Banfield, and that's going to be the end of that. Maybe we can see Ross continue to battle back a little bit using his car a little bit more, but I don't know.
Well, they had a little bit of lap traffic there, but they quickly moved out of the way as now Eric Smith is right up to the rear end of Banfield. And now it's going to be, we talk about this a lot, it's one thing to catch a driver, it's another thing to pass them. Is Banfield going to try to hold him off as long as possible, or is Banfield just going to take a step aside and allow Eric Smith to go by? We know at this moment that Eric Smith is certainly the faster driver. Smith is possibly the fastest driver on track today, but question is, will Eric Smith really try to battle him for as long as possible? But it's still an hour left in this race now, and I don't think he'll be able to hold that car off for a complete hour. As he could still easily hold on to second place. I think he might be able to keep his position before Pete Herod would be able to catch up. But the question is, how long is this battle going to be between Smith and Banfield?
And that's an interesting question here, Kelly, considering, you know, Ross may not be able to afford a battle of, you know, too much length here, but quite honestly, Eric Smith can definitely afford it. It looks like Eric Smith is going to end up cycling out to be your leader come the end of the race, or at least very close to Ross Banfield, if he isn't well ahead of the second place car. And quite honestly, I think Eric Smith can afford to toy with him a little bit here. He can afford to bring the battle to Ross Banfield, whereas Ross Banfield really probably can't, because he still has to bet on cycling out just like he needs to. And granted, you know, if everything does hold true, he may cycle out to be battling with Eric Smith. But just in case he doesn't, just in case something goes wrong, can he really afford to lose time battling?
No, absolutely not. And, you know, again, that just goes along with what we saw earlier on in this race. You know, these guys were battling it out, and they just kept on losing precious track time to Eric Smith, and I'm sure that's exactly what we're going to see right now. And, you know, Ross needs to continue to press on to continue to stay in front of Pete Herod, only 22 seconds behind him. So we'll see how it works out for him, and we'll see if Pete Herod would really push hard to get to that second place position and maybe to that first place position. We still have a little less than an hour left to go, so it's only going to get a little bit more exciting as the race does wear on. Once we get to that 30-minute mark, maybe we see a little bit more of a push. And as Kelly said, it's one thing to catch someone, it's another to pass, and Eric Smith is having a little bit of a difficult time finding somewhere to pass. And you know, that's exactly what we see here at Spa. Only a few turns to be able to pass someone at, and it's really hard to set someone up at to, you know, get around them.
Yeah, it is a very difficult track to pass at, and we saw that earlier as well with Banfield trying to get around Riley Thompson, as he tried to make a number of moves but just couldn't quite make any of them stick for the most part. So if you really want to battle back against the person passing you, you can make it extremely difficult for that person to pass you. And I think this is what Pete Herod is going to want to see. He's going to want to see those two drivers battle for as long as possible, but he's gaining a small amount of time per lap. But unless this battle really drags on, I don't think Herod's going to be able to get himself involved in this.
No, interestingly enough, there we go. Pete Herod is not really gaining time on these two, despite the fact they're running nose to tail, and they're going to be battling here soon. It's only a matter of time until Eric Smith brings the fight to Ross Banfield, and it could be down here in turn one. We've got to wait and see off into the La Source hairpin, but you know, realistically, you go back to the points that I was bringing up earlier on when Banfield was on the other side of a Mercedes trying to make a pass rather than trying to bend. And the Mercedes has a slight straightaway advantage, slight braking zone advantage. And I'm not sure if the Major Series actually added in the same weight penalty that iRacing did for the 24 hours of Spa, but if so, it really negates some of that. But that Mercedes is still a little bit, you know, of a better car. And if you are trying to really race a Mercedes at all at a high braking place like this, as we see the move off into turn 5, here comes Eric Smith looking for the lead into turn P5 doesn't have it just yet, has to back out. Banfield around the outside into 6 to the inside of the corner, and is going to lose that spot finally. But either way, as this battle rages on, you have to consider the advantages of the Mercedes versus the BMW, and now Eric Smith defends off into turn 9, going to hang on to that spot.
Yeah, and that's really a difficult part to pass, and kudos to Eric Smith, knowing that he had to make something happen soon, or he was just going to have to wait till another turn, and maybe it was just going to get harder and harder. So, you know, it's really difficult, you know, each part of this track, and now Ross Banfield sees Eric Smith just pull away from him, so he's going to have to try and push hard. So, you know, we'll have to see how that works out, and, you know, really difficult to see a driver try a different kind of pit strategy to try and get some more track position, and it just doesn't work out for him. But, you know, if there's a better racer on track, he's obviously going to take that track position, so good job to Eric Smith, and now we're going to watch to see how far he's going to run away with this.
Yeah, I think at this moment that was just the last move Eric Smith had to do to really seal this race. There's still about an hour left at the last time they were at the line, but I think he's not going to really face much other challenges. All the other lap traffic seems to just move out of his way, and really that was the last person he really probably will have to pass unless there's another pit stop to come. But I think Eric Smith and the rest of these guys will be able to drag this, possibly be able to drag this on. If not, they may need another splash to make it to the end, unless they do save fuel.
Yeah, they should all need one more pit stop. You get about an hour in a GT3 car, and then you have to come in a pit. Being this is just over 2 hours, it's really kind of iffy. And we saw the same kind of battle shape up at Nürburgring when Cisco and I called that race. It really can be iffy, and I like that Banfield went ahead and broke this race down backwards. He wanted to get that short stint out of the way quick, you know, battle at first for those positions and everyone's close, and then just get off sequence, run his race, and it worked out for him. He had a ton of laps right there. Even though Eric Smith made that pass smooth as a tube of Go-Gurt, he still is now ahead of that 31 car, and he's going to start putting time on him. And that's what he has to do realistically, is just get ahead and say, hey, I want to win this race. I'm going to put time back on you. And quite honestly, no matter how this works out, I think that 32 car has a bit of an advantage right now over Ross Banfield. It's not totally sealed in yet, considering just, you know, my figuring in my head mostly. Has Banfield coming out to a pretty good spot, actually, towards the end of the race, being that that'll be the end of the stint for him, and we're nearing the end of his stint currently. So if he's up in the front now at the end of this stint, at the end of his next stint, he should still be in the front.
And that Go-Gurt move into turn number 9 for Eric Smith really worked out in his favor, because he made it through without an issue, and I'm sure he just wanted to make sure that he got around him quickly without incident, because the longer you're going to fight with him, the bigger chance it's going to be with a incident going on. And, you know, thankfully nothing really happened, and Ross Banfield needs to, you know, keep his head down and keep on pushing. Eric Smith needs to hope that he doesn't wreck going into a corner, or lap traffic really doesn't mess up going into a corner and then take him out as well. But, you know, I'm sure he still does have that one, you know, fast repair limit waiting for him in that pit lane, but I'm sure he doesn't want to use it before this race is over.
But another thing is, I think Banfield got the race lead because his earlier pit stop was shorter. I believe it was shorter because he didn't need to fuel his car up entirely. He'd only been out for about 20 minutes and when he did the short hit earlier. This next time around, he's going to have to fill up his car entirely, it seems, unless he can stretch this for a bit longer, which will make his pit stop a bit longer when everyone else just needs a splash of fuel. So Banfield, while it worked out, the first pit stop worked out last time, I don't know if it's going to work out in his favor this time, as maybe he'll be a bit further back in the field after this next cycle of stops.
That's actually a very good point there, Kelly, but even if he doesn't end up cycling out to the front where he is now, he has 30 seconds on 5th place, just about, so he should still, even with, you know, an extra save out for 3 seconds of fuel, he'll still be around a top 5 position, at least a top 10. So realistically, I think it was a pretty good move from Ross Banfield to almost secure his destiny, if you will, to finish that high up. As car behind him actually almost went off track. That was almost exciting there, but really anything still could have happened where he was in that battle. It was still really a volatile situation. He almost saw Claude Belval, wreck his car. So quite honestly, that could have been Ross Banfield, and it could have actually happened. So I think it was a good move either way, even if he loses a position in the long run, to just solidify the fact that he will finish up front as long as he doesn't mess up just running on his own in this kind of a situation.
Yeah, just looking back through the field, we have a little bit of a close battle going on for 7th position. We have Riley Thompson, a lap car in between him and Richard McClure. Richard McClure now going to get around that lap car through turns number 8, going into turn number 9, that little horseshoe section, trying to continue to catch up to him, but really going to be monitoring that over the next couple of laps, because we'll see how both of these drivers are going to be running their different lines going through this whole entire race, and just seeing who can catch up to who, and really one of the closest battles that we have on track right now.
Yeah, we got Thomas Peterson just trying to close in on Chuck Chambliss. As those two are definitely very close, and you gotta wonder if maybe Peterson's gonna be able to use that draft as advantage. Not a great launch out of that corner, and that's definitely the corner you want to have a good launch on, because that's basically the second longest straightaway other than the Kemmel Straight. Is you really want to be able to draft as well as possible through these next couple corners, get yourself a good run to maybe set yourself up for a move into the bus stop chicane. But Peterson almost kind of ran a bit wide, got onto the rumble strips on the outside, and looked to kind of maybe spin up his tires a little bit, had to get off the throttle to get that car back into shape, and definitely lost him a lot of ground in this battle with Chuck Chambliss.
Yeah, Chuck Chambliss still trying to stay ahead of Thomas Peterson, maybe chase down Claude Belval. I look further back in the top 10. Michael Lane has actually worked his way into 9th place now, and I've actually lost track of Mike Kelly. He's actually in 19th, so I'm not sure if maybe that's a pit strategy call, as we do see some cars down the pit lane, and actually that is definitely a pit strategy call. Mike Kelly in the pit lane. Simon Thorne's not in theirs either. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought, but Carl Burke, Brandon Whitworth on the verge of a top 10 finish here. Should something work out ahead of them, and Whitworth is actually in 10th position. On the outside looking in would be Carl Burke and Oliver Mandrish, and actually that could be a battle sometime soon. No, I think Mandrish actually pitted just recently, so that blows that out of the water. But Nick Kuhn, currently in 13th position, also looking to make up some spots, work towards a top 10.
Yeah, and continue to monitor that battle going on right now. We have 2 separate battles again, just Chuck Chambliss and Thomas Peterson, and then Riley Thompson, Richard McClure watching them. It's about a second gap between them, less than a second gap, and seeing when they're going to continue to make their moves, or if they have to come down to pit lane again. And this is really exciting to see. We have still, I think it's 50 minutes left if my math is correct. Never been good at it, but just continue to watch these drivers. They're kind of getting to their mindset coming back now, that it's a little bit of a time to go and trying to get to each position that they can as soon as they can.
And it looks like to be a lap car possibly ahead of Chambliss. That is Terry Wellman, and we've seen these lap cars just quickly get out of the way of everyone as fast as possible, and I don't expect Wellman to hold up Chambliss at all, as much as Peterson would hope for him to hold him up. But looking as they go towards these last couple corners towards the bus stop chicane, it's not going to be the greatest spot for Chambliss to catch to a lap car, because at the moment there's nowhere for that lap car to go, as Wellman just kind of stuck going through the chicane at his own pace, and that's going to actually help up. Oh, Wellman nearly gets into him as Wellman tries to keep his car on the racetrack, but Chambliss able to avoid him, and that is going to help out Thomas Peterson just a little bit as they now go down towards La Source, as Peterson definitely closed up that gap around the last half of that lap.
And looking back to the point situation, we've been talking about Thomas Peterson a little bit recently. We talked about Mike Kelly earlier on in the day. Looking at the points, obviously Mike Kelly has 98 points coming into this race, but there's actually Riley Thompson in 2nd place. These guys that are now getting ahead of Mike Kelly could have a really good opportunity to make up some decent points here. I talked about Thomas Peterson earlier on being in second place. I was wrong there, but he's still only in fourth. So if he can work to make up some of these points that he's lost in recent weeks, he might, just might, if something really bad happens to Mike Kelly in the next couple of weeks, have another chance to go at it and possibly be able to unseat Mike Kelly. It's going to be hard, I will say that, but just looking at the point standings, it's a possibility.
Yeah, and again, you just got to be consistent and got to make sure that Mike Kelly just has a bad points day and you have a better points day than him, and just continue to press on. It's never over until it's over, until that last checkered flag flies for the major series at Myrtle Beach. When it comes that time, November 4th, Myrtle Beach 400, be there. Make sure to tune in and watch an exciting finish, because I'm sure that this point standing is going to be closer than it has been all season. And these drivers just continue to make sure that they're in some kind of contention. Thomas Peterson still trying to chase down Chuck Chambliss. Again, a little bit of a help from lap traffic, unintentionally, of course, but sometimes lap traffic does go your way sometimes.
Ross Banfield pulls it into the pits for his final pit stop, so we're going to see where he's going to come out of the pits and how this battle is really going to shape up, and see what his pit strategy is going to be like. But at the moment, we know this is an extremely long pit lane, because the endurance pit lane, which combines both the Formula 1 pits and the GT pits, so it's definitely a long ways to go at this low speed and a couple of tight corners. Looks like he actually almost got into the wall there. He might have actually gotten into the wall left. Take a look at his car, but I believe he does have his fast repair, so even if he does have a little bit of damage to that car, it will be okay. But Banfield into the pits, and we'll see how the other drivers are going to react, if who else is going to be coming down pit road for the final times.
He did actually tag the wall and crinkle up that left front fender. Not going to be too bad, I don't think. It looks like of course, it's either just a few seconds of optional or, fix it real quick with a fast repair. Shouldn't be too big of a deficit to him, but this is about when we were expecting him. So, he only has about 40 minutes to go here, 45 actually currently. And, I mean, realistically, he's almost setting himself up for, again, a top 5, at least a top 10 position, as, Eric Smith continues to just run amazing laps, still in 217s, low 217s as well. But realistically, I think he's almost got a handle on most of the top 5 even. Realistically, when you consider they still have to come in and pit, and, if they run it all the way out, they're going to run some slower lap times. Not by much, but somewhat slower lap times, or they can come in earlier and just put more fuel in. It really depends on what these guys want to do, obviously, where they want to lose their time. But I think Ross Banfield has a pretty good shot at getting a podium here.
Yeah, he does indeed, and just great perseverance will help him continue to press on for this top podium position. And coming down to the wire now, hour 40 has now elapsed here at Spa. So, these drivers know that it's coming down to the end of this race, and, after all of this hard work of, left and right turning for so many laps, 42 to be exact, here at Spa, it's really cool to see all these drivers continue to push on, and, only 6-7 guys have gotten DNF'd from this session, from the either wrecking or from the incident point, so that's pretty cool as well.
Well, Claude Belval makes the call. He's going to come down pit road as well. He was actually pretty close to Pete Herod. I think he was about maybe just a second and a half, 2 seconds back from Pete Herod when he made the pit strategy, and it was shaping up to quite a bit of a battle between them, and which was interesting because before the first pit stop, Pete was kind of as in the same boat as Eric Smith, just kind of away from everyone else in his own little space. But now after that pit call, he was under pressure from Claude Belval pretty much the entire time. He was always within about 2 seconds and was able to keep pace with Herod. But we'll have to see now as these pit strategy continues to shape up, and we'll have to wonder when Pete and Eric Smith are going to be coming down pit road.
And I like the move from Belval to kind of split this race up into somewhat more equal stints here, rather than trying to stretch tires longer or shorter. Just, equal it out, and then you know what you're running on pretty much. You're not into any uncharted territory as far as running the tires longer than you need to. Of course, that could be an interesting situation coming up for Ross Banfield, depending on exactly how hard he pushes this next stint. Regardless, though, I like that move, and I think it's going to work out, quite honestly, for Claude Belval to at least have a jump on Pete Herod. Whether or not he actually makes that pass, he's going to have a jump on him by a lap or so, and that's what Eric Smith did the previous cycle of pit stops. Eric Smith came in a lap earlier than Pete Herod. Pete Herod lost quite a lot of time somehow. I'm not sure where, but lost quite a lot of time somewhere in that pit cycle earlier on, so it could really work out in Claude Belval's favor.
Yeah, absolutely, and Claude Belval doing such a great job all day long, and now down pit lane. Thomas Peterson, I believe, is down pit lane as well, getting their service to their car. Riley Thompson still in 6th place. We'll see if he can catch up to Thomas Peterson or Claude Belval, but Chuck Chambliss still out on track right now. All these drivers still doing their groove, and 14 cars on the lead lap currently. Eric Smith still holding about a 30-second gap over Pete. Really heartbreak from him, from doing such a great pit stop strategy to 30 seconds behind now, and we'll see how it works out for him. Claude Belval back out on track as we speak. Thomas Peterson will check in on him, see how he's doing. He is just coming out of pit lane as well, coming down Kemmel straight into the next set of turns. But all these drivers doing such a great job tonight.
And looking back at Ross Banfield, he's currently sitting just a few seconds ahead of Eric Smith in terms of track position. So Eric hasn't quite lapped Banfield. So that means when Eric comes down to pit road, it's possible that Banfield might be able to put himself into kind of the lead position once again. So he may not win this race on outright speed, but Banfield at the moment has a chance to maybe win this race off of pit strategy, because he's been making some fantastic calls. His first call really made a huge difference for him, and we'll have to wonder maybe this time around is this next pit stop cycle, it might work out for him once more.
The only thing he has to consider here is just making sure he keeps those tires in a good situation. He can't push too hard yet. He has to make sure he has something left for when Eric Smith undoubtedly will catch up to him. Eric Smith has just been on a flying pace all day long, still running in the low 217s. So he really has to consider, the long, game here, just like we were talking about with Mike Kelly as far as the season. Shorten that scale up a little bit down to just this race, this 2.4 hours at hand, but still, you have to really, keep the big picture in mind here. And I think it's a pretty good chance for Ross Banfield to try and do something to try and win this race, but he really has to be able to bring the fight to Eric Smith for much longer than he did previously.
Yeah, absolutely, and just continue to watch and monitor these drivers' lap times. They're doing such a great job. Michael Lane now moves up into that 5th place position after some pit stops are cycling through. Ross Banfield now goes to P12. Claude Belval 13, 1 lap down, and we'll just see how this cycles through, because once everything cycles through, it's a sprint to the finish, guys, and it's going to be one heck of a finish from Spa.
And take a look at Eric Smith, still running a very consistent line. Actually, as I say that, almost getting a little bit too far towards the inside there throughout the Eau Rouge corner. And as we saw earlier with Riley Thompson, you got to be careful with that. You want to get as far inside as possible for the fast line, but go too far, you're going to get a slowdown penalty, and that is a terrible place to have one, because it's the fastest section of the track going through that Kemmel straight, and if you're having to get off the throttle to serve a penalty, that is going to do a huge amount of damage to your lap time. And that's actually probably what Pete Herod really needs, is for Eric Smith to make a mistake like that, because that would allow Pete Herod to probably at least gain maybe around, depending on how long the slowdown penalty itself is, maybe around 10 seconds, just in terms of the race speed that he would lose.
Yeah, and we saw the, detrimental effects to Riley Thompson earlier in this race. He ended up just a little bit too far to the left at the top end of Eau Rouge, got that slowdown penalty, and lost, I think, 5-6 spots, something like that, in just a straightaway, having to give up that time. And it's about 2 to 3 seconds, depending on how much you cut there. So, you get one penalty like that, then maybe another later on, and quite honestly, your race has totally shifted to now trying to catch up, trying to make back what you just lost. And for Eric Smith, being in the situation he currently is, can't afford that. Really, anybody in any position in this race at this point can't afford that. If you're going to do it early in the race like Riley Thompson, but at this point, you have to be perfect. We only have maybe 20 or so laps left in this race with how long laps take here. You just have to hit everything on point from here to the end. As actually, I see a car off the track in turn 17. Marcus Tracy again having issues in Blanchemont.
Yeah, you know, just again, you know, you have to make sure that you're always headstrong and into the game, or sim rather, and you know, just make sure that you're not going to keep on making mistakes that you know that you have made in the past before, and you know, just continue to try to fix errors that you're making and try to stay on track. And you know, you don't want to rack up those incident points, obviously, and then get DQ'd from this race. That would not be the ideal way to end this race, but you know, just continue to watch these drivers is always such a neat thing to do.
Well, we got Andy Banfield coming down pit road now as he's going to come make his last stop. Looking at the other Banfield, though, I'm trying to figure out where he is. Ross Banfield, he's still on the racetrack and still working on his pit strategy. And Andy's pulled ahead of Mike Golightly, who definitely had some problems a few laps ago. We didn't see that on the cameras, but Mike Golightly's Audi is absolutely demolished, and it looks like he's going to be out of this race as he's already 9 laps down.
Yeah, we saw he had issues earlier on, actually as a result of Marcus Tracy's first issue down in turn 17. Now looks like he's got a ton more damage. Unfortunately for him, day is done. But back to the Banfield situation and the Ross Banfield situation, not Andy Banfield, as he tries to get by, I believe, that Samuel Dowdy there in the 66. He's actually got about 10 seconds, realistically, on the leader currently back as far as keeping himself on the lead lap. He's got about 10 seconds back to the leader, Eric Smith. And if he can try and get just another couple of seconds, I think that's really going to do numbers as far as how this this stint is going to work out, as far as how it's going to cycle out. He really needs to try and get just enough out of these next few laps to start putting more of a gap on the leader, but not enough to jeopardize himself and get himself into, you know, a crazy situation where he's just pushing too hard and almost wrecking the car.
Yeah, and that's really the fine line that these drivers have to find here at a track like Spa. You know, just got to make sure that they're on the edge, but not pushing to the limit, essentially. But always making sure their car is on track and ready to go at any moment's notice. It's really cool to see these guys, like, push the limits as far as they can, but without really, you know, wrecking their car. So, you know, I have to watch to see how these drivers continue to press on. Eric Smith doing such a great job in the lead, has done a great job all night long, only giving up the lead during the cycle of pit stops, but we'll see how this works out for him in the long run.
And Ross Banfield's been running about almost a second a lap slower than Eric Smith, but as 10 seconds go, it's a pretty long time, because I think another 10 laps in, it would definitely be time for Eric. Before then, Eric Smith would have to come pit, as we're getting closer and closer towards this basically the end of this race, and Eric pitted about almost 50 minutes ago. So I'd expect Eric Smith to be coming down pit road within the next maybe 4 laps or so. But I don't think he's going to be able to catch Banfield on this this little stint.
No, I don't think so. He is definitely gaining time, but it's still too much of a deficit to overcome, and you're definitely right about when we can expect that 32 car to come into the pit lane, and Pete Harrod will be coming in right about the same time as well, considering Pete Harrod actually ran 1 lap longer than Eric Smith. Now, keep in mind, I mentioned earlier, Pete Harrod could reasonably, if he ran the right engine map at the right times, make it long enough to make this just a one-stop race. It's going to be difficult, definitely, but keep that in mind. I don't think he's going to go for it, but just keep it in mind in case we see him decide to stay out a lap or so, or I guess a couple of laps after the leader, Eric Smith. I also quickly want to shout out Samuel Dowdy. I mentioned even if you come home 5 laps down, at the end of the day, you're still coming home if you keep that car in one piece. Currently, he may be 4 laps down, but look at that number 66 Audi. It is 100% perfectly clean, not a scratch on it, doing a great job just bringing that car home.
And again, he's just going for those points. You know, at the end of the day, you're going to need to advance yourself into the position. Maybe this isn't the track car combo that you necessarily like, so you're just going to continue to push on and, you know, get a points day out of this. At the end of the day, you're going to be walking home with a clean race car and some points for your point standing. So, maybe you're going to have better car track combo chance at, the Pocono Raceway or Knoxville coming up in a few weeks' time. Maybe Japanese GP circuit, or the Bathurst, or even Myrtle Beach. So, you still have a plentiful amount of options to go through. So we'll see how it works out for them in the future.
Well, taking a look back at our race lead, Eric Smith continues to lead almost 30 seconds over Pete Herod, but we've only got 7 cars in the lead lap now. Everyone else has called a pit strategy at the moment and brought it down pit road, but you got to wonder when these next guys are going to go. Are they going to try to stretch it for as long as possible and try to just hope for a quick splash of fuel and just a run to the end, or are they going to maybe come down a bit earlier, see if they can undercut? We've seen the extreme version of the undercut with Ross Banfield, who's come down pit road almost pretty much an hour before everyone else had both times. But it worked out for him on the last stint we saw. But it's really the question that's been hanging in the air, and we'll have to wait until we see these other 6 drivers pit.
Yeah, I still want to bank on Ross Banfield, at least being in the neighborhood, actually, of Eric Smith, somewhere around that 32 car, whether it be ahead, behind. I really think they're going to come out of this cycle really close to each other here at these last few minutes of this race. As far as how Pete Herod falls into that situation, I'm not sure. Pete Herod is actually making up a couple of seconds a lap now on Eric Smith. That last time around, he made a couple of seconds anyways. Eric Smith actually went down to a 2:19.2, whereas Herod ran a 2:17.7. So second and a half difference there. And that's really a sudden switch, because just a couple of laps ago, Eric Smith was running, mid 2:17s, and to run a low 2:19 right there is definitely an impact there. Hopefully he doesn't run that same kind of lap this time around. Hopefully he picks back up, but if that starts to become a trend, definitely watch out for this 32 car to lose some serious time.
And here we go, lap 48 coming to lap 50, still watching Eric Smith press on, just doing such a great job. And, Pete Herod, he's doing a great job too. It was 30 seconds, now it's down to 27. So he's gained about 2.5 seconds onto that, and, really great job done by him today, really letting anything get in the way and not really seeing that, second counter of the interval go up and up and up, not really letting him get him down, and continuing, just to press on. And Pete Herod has done such a great job, as well as Eric Smith, Chuck Chambliss, we've talked about a lot tonight, and Riley Thompson.
Well, as we wait for the leaders to come down pit road for a final time, we're going to take a step aside and take a quick break. But then when we come back, we'll probably bring you all the way to the end. But you're watching the 2.4 hours of Spa for the Atlantic Major Series on LSRTV.
Mission 22 is dedicated to unite the country in the war against veteran suicide. Bringing our veterans home is every American's job. Ambassadors are creating impact in their community across the country. Mission 22 has comprehensive treatment programs for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury at no cost to veterans. This is an American issue. No matter where you stand, there's a place for your support. Visit mission22.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Ryan Priest. I'm driving New Hampshire at my home. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been on IRA practicing a little bit here and there with the modified and the NASCAR Xfinity cars. So fast, and it's our Daytona. So that's what's great about it, and we have a fast car for tomorrow. I think the biggest thing is they're heavier cars. The tire's a lot different, and the way you go about setting them up is a lot different. They use all 4 tires more than a modified, where we typically drive off the right rear, so. Well, actually, it's funny. I raced NASCAR race in 2003 before iRacing came about, and then when iRacing came about, my friend Kevin Iannarelli, who works at iRacing, kind of told me, hey man, you need to switch over to this, and when I did, I was like, oh my God, this is like real life. So I started using it as a tool of mine to to really prepare for modified races, whether it was Stafford or Thompson or Loudon, Bristol, and then obviously the Xfinity Series last year, going to road courses, trying to get laps, and use it as a tool that can get me as prepared as I could be without actually doing it. So it's been great.
Welcome back to the 2.4 hours of Spa from the Atlantic Major Series. And if you enjoy watching the Major Series, go give them some support on the pacificmajors.com/store. They have everything you need there. There's t-shirts, there's hats. You can even get a poster with some of the fantastic race art of the races that they put on, or even get a custom hero card of maybe one of the drivers you enjoy watching. So pacificmajors.com/store. You can go there and give them your support for putting on this fantastic racing series. Eric Smith continuing to lead and has stepped up his pace just a little bit more. And one thing of note is Richard McClure is just 1 second ahead of Ross Banfield. So I believe McClure might have come down pit road recently. I think he did just come out of pit road. So McClure ahead of Banfield. Banfield's pit strategy will not put him into the race lead.
And that was some sketchy lap traffic right there. I was almost in awe expecting a wreck right there. That was Jose Pabon and Julian Huxley, who were right in front of both McClure and Ross Banfield. Now McClure coming up to the very damaged Audi of Mike Golightly. And I mean, realistically, this is going to be a battle here soon. I think Banfield's definitely got the pace to drive right up to Richard McClure, but also Richard McClure might not have taken tires. Being how far we are into the race, you can do about a stint and a half on tires, and then things really start to get a little bit sketchy. He won't even have to do quite that long, so I wouldn't be surprised if these guys actually start to kind of mess with, whether or not they actually come in and take tires on their final pit stop. And, it was certainly an option all along. I just didn't know if anyone was actually going to go for it, considering how rough this place is on tires.
Yeah, and that just goes along with it. Watching Ross Banfield at the moment continue to press on. You got to make sure that your car is going to be suitable for the end of the race, and that could just go with taking gas, or it could go with taking tires and gas. We'll see how it works out for him. Ross Banfield definitely going to be able to catch him. I'm just not sure where. Watching them go through La Source hairpin right now down to the front stretch, and seeing Richard McClure right in his sights. Now he's going to pass that lap traffic car, and we'll see where he catches him. I don't think he'll be able to catch him going down the start-finish line. They're going to go up through En Rouge and continue to go down Kimmel Straight and battle for that position, but not right now.
I think Banfield might have gone a little bit too far to the inside there through Eau Rouge and may have gotten himself a penalty. We'll have to see if he slows up at all. And at the moment, he looks like he's still going full tilt, but that was definitely very close to getting himself a slowdown penalty, which would really kill pretty much any chance he'd have of catching up to Richard McClure at this moment.
Yeah, it's a really fine line coming up through Eau Rouge, but you can actually be surprisingly aggressive with the track limits, both on entry and exit. It's really interesting, but it is a very fine line once you get that far out, you know, of the racing line as far as whether or not you're going to get a slowdown. Looks like Ross Banfield somehow avoided it, unless suddenly we see him ditch into the pit lane with a really big penalty, but that wouldn't make any sense at this point. But McClure, I think, isn't really going to get away from him via that whole situation there. I really think this 31 car has the pace, even on the slightly older tires, to at least catch him.
Oh, spin in front of the leader.
Story.
There's a Jose Pabon just spun right in front of Eric Smith going through. I think that was Pohan there, or whatever the however you pronounce that turn, that double left-hander turn 12 complex. Is Eric Smith able to pass him, thankfully, without any incident, but that was definitely a bit of a scary moment for the 30 race leader of the 32 machine.
And definitely glad he got through there without any issue. Jose Pabon, I think, ended up towing back to the pit lane. Unfortunate break there for the 705. We'll catch up on that story later on. But for now, you have to wonder, as we've been talking about recently, mostly Kelly actually, does this story for the race win now exclude Ross Banfield? Is it really just down to Eric Smith unless something happens to that 32 car? And, I mean, Pete Herod is going to need a miracle if he's going to try and catch that leader of Eric Smith. So at this point, do you almost write out anyone else from getting this win here, Trevor?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough to see this watching now. Richard McClure get really close to that back bumper, or excuse me, Ross Banfield get to the back bumper of Richard McClure going through and Rogue, and you know, going down Kendall Straight to 7, 8, and 9. We'll see how it works out for them going to that area, and you know, going through En Rouge, that's really where you're going to get the most off-track time deducted from you. You know, going through that corner, and you know, just a little bit of a misstep going through there, and then all of a sudden, you know, you have to give up 2 seconds. But these drivers have done such a great job going through those corners so quickly. And, you know, now we're getting down to that nitty-gritty part. Ross Banfield, so close to Richard McClure right now.
Eric Smith dealing with some more lap traffic. Another car getting a little bit loose in front of him, as that looks to be Simon Thorns. Looks like Simon was just trying to get out of the way, going through, I think, turn 10 there. He just got a little bit loose as he moved himself towards the outside, able to hold onto that car, keep himself pointed in the right direction, but I think Eric Smith's heart has been pounding for this last lap and a half or so. Is just all these lap cars just having some issues, as he's been just having some bad luck as they are having these issues as he's catching up to them.
Yeah, the communications from the driver of the 32 back to his team might not totally be PG after that last lap we just had with Jose Pabon going around in front of him, and Simon Thorns almost having a moment, and that's going to start to set in. We talked about earlier on, while you know, earlier on in the race there wasn't any threat of fatigue for the next hour or so, but at this point on, you've run about as long of a stint that you would normally run, say, in a 24-hour race here. You'd really only run 2, maybe 3 hours, and that's a stretch here at Spa, because this is a very tiring track, a very fatiguing track, and at this point, you're going to start to see drivers make more mistakes. They're just not quite as focused, and they've been running a lot of laps. It's starting to get monotonous for them, so realistically, we're going to see more mistakes here in these last few laps. We've got about 9 to go based on timing. We'll see what we actually end up running here, but mistakes are going to be more and more common as these minutes click away.
Yeah, and you know, that's exactly what I was pointing out earlier on in this race. From hour 1 to hour 2, now we have you know, less than 20 minutes to go here at Spa-Francorchamps. So you know, it's really cool to see how these drivers have gone from basically minute 0 to this point, and we're still having some great battles going on here at Spa. You know, Richard McClure did such a great job, and you know, now it's really hard to see how he's fallen back from that area of where he was in the top 3, and we'll see how it works out. Chuck Chambliss still trying to gain 15 seconds to get to Pete Herod.
Yeah, still a long ways to go, but there's a few of these drivers up front, as you mentioned, they haven't come down pit road, and we don't think they'd be able to stretch it until the end of this race. So you got to wonder, are these guys attempting to save fuel and make it to the end, or are they just going to go until those tanks are nearly empty and then throw the car down pit lane? Because We've seen Ross Banfield and Richard McClure pit, but I don't believe Carl Burke has. Riley Thompson hasn't. Chuck Chambliss has not. Neither is Pete Herod or Eric Smith. So a number of the top five, pretty much all the top five, have not come down pit road. So you got to wonder, when are these guys going to come pit?
Yeah, I mean, you can still run pretty decently competitive lap times here at Spa, even running map 1 or map 2. But it's really difficult. You really have to be up on the wheel, and realistically, I think just based on the lap times, I haven't seen much deviation aside from one lap here or there where something happens to one of these drivers where they run, you know, any slower than they should be. So I really don't think anyone's been thinking about fuel. I think the only one who is even in a decent position to do so, considering a lap here is 4.5 miles rather than just, I don't know, a lap at Dover or Phoenix or something like that. I think the only driver who has a chance to do it, reasonably speaking, is going to be, as we said, the leader Eric Smith pit, is going to be Pete Herod. I think he's the only driver within that decent range to do it. And actually, I think this pit stop here for Eric Smith might be just a little bit early based on the laps they ran earlier on. It might be just a couple of minutes early.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, such great strategy done by all of these drivers, you know, really mixing it up, knowing that you can't pass somebody on track, so you got to do it a different route. And really, that's where you're going to see most of these guys prevail, is actually on pit road, not during this 21-turn course of Spa. You know, really cool to see how these guys are going to be changing things up and, you know, trying to defeat each other on pit road, because really that's where you're going to see all the passes done during this kind of racing. And, you know, it's really cool that all these drivers have done the crunching the numbers and, you know, just done everything that they can to do everything that they can to make sure that they finish in a great position to get them a good points day.
Well, Pete Herod has decided to not pit at the same time as Eric Smith, and I believe this is the same thing that happened last time around. Pete took another extra lap or so before coming down the pit road. Chuck Chambliss is down pit road. Riley Thompson is not. Carl Burke is still on track as well, but he hasn't even come around to the pit entrance yet. So you got to wonder just how many are going to be coming down this time around, because at the moment Pete Herod and Riley Thompson are taking an extra lap, and now the focus is shifting to Carl Burke as he's coming down to the basically the back stretch of this race course. And the question is he going to come down, or is he going to be like those others and stretch it one more lap?
And Eric Smith is already back on the racetrack, which tells me that was a no-tire pit stop, probably just a little bit of fuel. A great move there. I think he's definitely got this thing wrapped up, considering I think Ross Banfield actually took quite a bit of fuel and tires that first time he came in, just 20 minutes into the race. So I think Eric Smith has just about cemented himself in that position. So now, really the question is, Pete Herod, now the leader, is he going to be able to stretch this out? Is he going to be able to somehow have saved enough fuel throughout this run, if he was saving fuel, to go the distance? He still has to go 14 minutes. That comes out to about about 3 laps, I believe. 3 to 4, somewhere in that nature. My math isn't doing so well for me right now. I think it's actually 5. But either way, it's going to be difficult, considering he ran only 1 lap past Eric Smith earlier on in this race. Now, if he comes in here, obviously he wasn't saving. If he goes around one more time, you really have to start questioning it, as Angus is slow right in front of him and Herod stays on the track. So now, that actually opens the question on whether or not that 21 car saved any fuel at all.
And really what we're going to get is a solidifying answer if he goes around again and does not pit, which, you know, would be quite the feat that he has done. And, you know, that'll just go down to, can he make it, and will he actually pull this out of the hat and, you know, take down Eric Smith, who has done such a great job in the former weeks and this week as well. We'll see how it works out here at Spa, going up en Rouge, and it's really cool to see all these drivers continue to press on. 10 cars on the lead lap at the moment, cycling through, you know, half pit stops and everything. But so we'll see how much he has saved, and if he has saved. Pete Herod has done such a great job. 30 seconds back is Eric Smith, and Riley Thompson 38 seconds back. So we'll see how long that interval does indeed change going to the start-finish line. And Eric Smith did not take tires, so we're going to not see a big gap difference, but we'll see how it works out going to the start-finish line, guys.
Chuck Chambliss has come down pit road. Riley Thompson is currently on pit road. Burke has pitted. McClure has pitted. Banfield has pitted. I believe the only person that's still on the racetrack that has not come down pit road is Pete Herod. So as you mentioned, the question is, has he saved? Has he saved fuel? He's still got another about 13 or 12, 13 minutes left on the race until that time runs out, and then possibly another lap after that, depending on when the timer runs out. And it's a real question of, is he going to have enough fuel? I don't believe he's going to be able to stretch this out far enough unless he's been on that lower fuel map the entire time and been drafting cars whenever he can. But for the most part, it looked like he was kind of just driving on his own. So I don't think that 21 machine has got enough gas in it.
We'll get our answer here, I think, like Trevin said last time around. If he dips into the pit lane here this time through the chicane, we know he didn't. If he keeps going,
and there he is.
There it is. So I think you have to write Eric Smith as the winner. Quite honestly, he ended up actually leaving Ross Banfield by virtue of not taking tires, just taking a little bit of fuel by over a minute, I think, or at least very close to a minute, considering Banfield is over a minute behind. So yeah, I mean, Eric Smith only came in for a 13-second stop. We'll see how long Pete Herod's stop is, but Eric Smith right on top of it. Now you have to wonder, did he calculate his fuel number correctly? Obviously, he did not take a full tank of fuel. So, does he have enough fuel to go the whole way? Considering how accurate he's been just with everything so far, be it passing a lapped car, just running his line, I wouldn't put it past him to have enough fuel. But it's certainly something to wonder about when you start taking a little less fuel. Sometimes you might use a little more than you think you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's easy to mistake some numbers. As you know, us commentators know, we have to do a lot of math up here in the booth, and you know, sometimes we do it a little bit too quickly and it's not correct, and we're off by either a few decimal places or a few numbers. But it's the same thing as the drivers here at Spa trying to figure out their complete fuel mileage that they have going on. But you know, it could be an easy mix-up, but we'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on Eric Smith, and as he goes around this really 4.35 mile track with just a handful of minutes left to go, actually under 10 minutes now.
Yeah, not long left for Eric Smith to go, and really what he just needs is to have a clear track in front of him. He's had a few moments with some lap down cars that have kind of spun around in front of him, but he's never really gotten himself into any trouble so far, and that's really all he needs to do until the end of this race, is just keep himself out of trouble, just keep hitting his mark, run a safe and easy line, because there's no need for him to drive hard at this point. He's pretty much got this win wrapped up. He just needs to just kind of ease off the pedal a little bit and quietly and slowly cruise to the win.
Well, here's the good news. Back from Eric Smith to Chuck Chambliss, it was about 50 seconds last time around. So he has at least a 50-second gap back to Chuck Chambliss, who we assume will finish third, unless something happens with Riley Thompson. So Eric Smith, looking forward now, has at least about a straightaway, pretty much the Camel straight up to the next lapped cars. I mean, they're already headed off into La Source, Simon Thorns, and George Angus. So realistically, Eric Smith can just sit here in this bubble, even if he drives slower, just to avoid running into a lapped car and having something, God forbid, happen. He can just ride at this point. He's got such a large bubble at this point. He doesn't have to push at all, and I think that's what we're all kind of getting at. And as Pete Herod gets back onto the track, he's only going into Blanchemont now, as Eric Smith's already out of La Source.
Yeah, and that's really one of the things I like about this track, is that the pit lane is so long, and it really is a great equalizer of how long these drivers have to go on for, and we see a great example right there. You know, passing the start-finish line is Eric Smith and Pete Herod all the way back in Blanchemont. So, really interesting to see how this pit strategy is really working out, and Eric Smith doing such a great job this whole entire day and this past 2 hours and 20 minutes. But, it really comes down to these final couple of laps, and hopefully, nothing really major happens to our race leader. We've already seen some incident happen with the lap car in front of him. Luckily, he was able to avoid that. But that just goes along with saying that anything can happen at any moment of time, especially at a race like this with a lot of lap cars.
And so it's been a very dominant race for Eric Smith. 2 dominant races in a row, as we saw a few weeks ago with the classic Silverstone Grand Prix. He jumped out to an early lead, just like in this race. Faced a little bit of pressure early on, then just kind of took off from the rest of the field. So really it's become kind of synonymous with Eric Smith. It's just the road course dominance, but it's not what this series is all about. You've got to be consistent everywhere. So while he's dominated these last 2 races, I don't think he's very high up on these the points standings. So we'll have to, he's gonna probably make himself the only other 2-time winner, but Eric Smith currently sitting 15th in points after this race. I'd expect to see him up there, maybe up towards 13th, but it's just one of the parts of this of the series is you can be strong for 1 or 2 races, but unless you're strong everywhere, you're not going to really succeed in the championship.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why we see Mike Kelly so high up. Of course, even if you look at the start stat for these drivers, Mike Kelly has 8 starts coming into the 9th race, so this makes 9. He's been here every week. The only other drivers in the top 15 that can say they've been to every race so far are Joshua Kanata, who actually comes in almost 150 points behind Mike Kelly, as well as Carl Burke, who comes in 164 back. And then it looks like the only other driver after that is going to be Jason Wallet, who comes into the race 240 points back. So realistically, out of just showing up, Mike Kelly has almost wrapped up this championship. It would take something serious and some seriously high car counts the next few weeks for him to be even close to unseated up at the top of the point standings. So you're totally right, Kelly. We're talking about Eric Smith dominating Silverstone and coming into Spa, dominating Spa. But unless something serious happens, there's no way he's going to make up 360 points on Mike Kelly and doing better than all of the drivers in between to somehow come home and win the championship. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's just gotta be so heart-wrenching for all these drivers, seeing how they're doing so good and knowing that they're not going to be able to catch the points leader here tonight. And Mike Kelly, you gotta tip a hat to him. Really just done such a great job all season long. Really won some big races and always had a great finish, within the top 10s or wherever he was standing. Always doing such a great job. I'm sure he'd love to ask Oliver Mandrich to finish off the night here. But sometimes, you won't get a great finish, but you'll still walk out with a couple of points in your back pocket, and that will be a good thing for Mike Kelly at the end of this thing.
Yeah, I think Mike Kelly might be able to get around Mandrich. He's been putting the pressure on him, but Mandrich was able to put a faster lap time down in practice. Mandrich may have started all the way back in 25th, but between qualifying and the pre-race warm-up, he was able to find some speed because he's been doing pretty well. I believe he is our biggest mover to be coming up from 25th all the way up into 12th, but Kelly has been putting on some pressure. But at this moment, really, there's no need for Mike Kelly to push hard to try to get spots. He just needs a consistent finish, and to be in the top half of this field is pretty much good enough for Mike Kelly. Yes, Riley Thompson is going to be gaining some points on him, but Thompson is his teammate, so I'm sure he's not going to mind that too much. But I think Mike Kelly will still have the points lead as we leave this track.
And just to add to that, Kelly, of course, we've talked about Mike Kelly every race so far, be it the Classic Daytona 2.4 back in February, all the way to now here at Spa. But going into Pocono later this month, we talked about him back at Indianapolis in the IndyCar in May. So obviously he's got some experience there, has some speed there. Haven't seen any of these drivers on dirt yet, don't know how Knoxville is going to go. We go to Japan for Suzuka, no clue there, but then you get back to, I believe we're going to have some kind of sports or touring car for Bathurst, and we're going to have, I believe, late models at Myrtle Beach in November. Those are places where we can almost 100% tack Mike Kelly down as at least a top 15 or so, at least in the top half of the field. So realistically, you're going to have to go out there and win 2 or 3 of these next few races to even think about it. And even then, you have to be maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th at the worst if you're going to want to have a chance at somehow beating Mike Kelly in this championship.
Yeah, and you just got to make sure that you're more consistent than Mike Kelly is, and we're past halfway, unfortunately. So Mike Kelly again has kind of sealed the deal on this championship, but there's really never say never. Mike Kelly could have a disastrous couple more races, and it just comes with hoping that he just doesn't have a good points day for yourself. And really interesting to see all these drivers continue to press on. Mike Kelly again really close to Oliver Mandrish, and just continue to watch this battle one lap down. So we'll see how this works out for him, coming to probably 2 or 1 lap to go here pretty soon.
Yeah, Eric Smith brings it across the start-finish line this time around. 2 hours and 20 minutes into this race. So I believe we will have 2, maybe even 3 laps, depending on how fast Eric finishes these next couple laps. So there's still a bit of time left in this race, but certainly not very much. And Eric Smith is starting to catch up to George Angus, who is a car that's a lap down, and so there may be another lap car or 2 that Eric's going to have to pass before this race is through. So hopefully it'll be without any incident.
Yeah, but after Simon Thorns, who's just a little ways ahead of George Angus even, there's just a big old gap to the Mercedes of Brandon Whitworth. So realistically, Eric Smith smooth sailing here once he gets by this number 753 of George Angus. After that, I'm not even sure he's going to catch Simon Thorns. So smooth sailing here for our soon-to-be, more than likely, but not 100%, but soon-to-be more than likely race winner here, Eric Smith. Meanwhile, Pete Herod is actually catching that battle we've been highlighting for a while here between the 3-car and the 844 of Mike Kelly and Oliver Mandrish, respectively. So this could impact just, how fast second place runs to the finish. But realistically, these positions all the way through the lead lap are going to stay cemented as they are. The only ones that I see that could change would be that battle we've been watching, Oliver Mandrish and Mike Kelly.
Yeah, and really great job done by both these drivers. And again, tip of the hat to Eric Smith, Pete Herod, Chuck Chambliss, Riley Thompson, Ross Banfield. All these guys that we've been talking up in this top 5, top 10 area have really stayed together up in that area. Ross Banfield had a great idea on what to do for pit lane cycle, but sometimes a pit lane just doesn't work out the way that you want it to work out, and that's just the name of the racing here. So we'll have to see how he turns out. I'm sure that he's going to be finishing right where he is right now, but got to be so heartbreaking for him to plan something, and it's always really tough to see it not going to fruition.
Well, Eric Smith crosses the line once more, and possibly for the second to last time. I believe he'll be able to get around the track one more time, and I think next time they will show him the white flag. So just to ease up for Eric Smith, probably just to let off the throttle just a little bit on these next few straights, and just quietly cruise around the track, because he's got a 34-second lead over Pete Herod. Pete himself is kind of in just behind that battle between Mike Kelly and Oliver Mandrish, who they also have Joshua Kanata right in front of them, but Kanata is 2 laps down, so basically 1 lap down from the battle behind him. So Pete Herod, if anyone's going to be in a risky spot, I'd say it's him, just kind of behind that last little battle. But I think if Herod's smart, he'll keep his space from them, as looks like Kanata lifts off the throttle to let all 3 of them by.
And a great move there from Joshua Kanata to let them by. And realistically, going back to the Mike Kelly situation, I'm not sure he's going to have enough to get by Oliver Mandrish here. It seems like that 844 is pretty dialed in right now. I've just been watching this battle as we continue to talk about the race in general, and I'm amazed that Oliver Mandrish I don't even see him in the top 15, and he is doing a great job of holding off one of the most dominant and consistent drivers of the season so far in the Major Series Atlantic Split, doing a great job right now trying to hang on to 12th position.
Yeah, really hanging on to that position right there, and Mike Kelly just getting ready to pounce at any moment's notice, really keeping that mirror full of himself, and we'll see how these two Mercedes fight out, and if it really is gonna happen, maybe coming around this turn right here. No, Mike Kelly's just gonna keep on, maybe forcing Oliver into a mistake going into a corner. Coming up now, gonna give him the inside looking there. No, won't happen.
Yeah, while Mandrish just holding him off, I don't think Kelly's going to be pushing as hard as possible, because it's really no need for him to push that hard. But going back up towards the front, Eric Smith coming across the start-finish line, going to get the white flag this time by. So final lap of the race for Eric Smith. Really no other challengers for him, and now the rest of these drivers are going to be probably pushing a lot harder, knowing that this is going to be the end of the race, and next time around it's going to be the checkers.
And as they come to it again, most of these positions all set in stone. I actually am noticing Claude Belval trying to reel in at Richard McClure. It's going to be a long shot, but he's definitely trying. These guys all trying to get that last little position. And it looks like actually Mike Kelly might have gotten Oliver Mandrish, but by technicality, I think he had an issue in the last corner, maybe even a disqualification. It's sounding like possibly disqualification for the 844 of Oliver Mandrish here, and that's going to give that 12th spot to Mike Kelly, which means now we shift back to Claude Belval trying to reel in Richard McClure down into turn 17 for the final time today. Claude Belval trying to make something happen here. Andrew Blanchemont just a little ways back. He's been reeling this 65 car in. He's in the 56, and to the final time into the chicane, coming to the line. It's not going to be enough for Claude Belval. He definitely closed the gap, but it's just not quite enough for him to get by for that 6th position.
Yeah, bouncing off those big sausage curbs in the inside, is he just pushing as hard as possible to really just try to catch as much as possible, but again, not quite going to make it. And Eric Smith still just kind of cruising along by himself, just kind of I believe he did take the checker, so it is kind of just a victory lap for Eric Smith. But even if it's not, it's going to be just a dominant race for Eric. At the moment, 37.593 is the official call between him and Pete Harrod. Is just two back-to-back dominating races, two back-to-back dominating victories for Eric Smith, and he will become the second two-time winner for this season of the Atlantic Major Series.
Yeah, really great job done by Eric Smith, and just a fantastic tip of the hat to him for these consecutive wins. And I'm sure this gives him a little bit more momentum going into further races coming up, as we still have, I think it's 4 or 5 more still left to race here. Pocono obviously next, so that's always going to be an exciting one. We'll see how it works out for Eric Smith, or if somebody else can pull it out of the hat as well.
Well, Eric Smith wins the 2.4 hours of Spa and goes back-to-back when you include last week, or not last week's, but the last race at the Classic Silverstone GP. But we're going to take a quick step aside. When we come back, though, we will have your full field rundown and hopefully a few interviews with your top 3. And so don't go anywhere. Just after this will be the post-race show of the 2.4 hours of Spa for the Atlantic Major Series.
Mission 22 is dedicated to unite the country in the war against veteran suicide. Bringing our veterans home is every American's job. Ambassadors are creating impact in their community across the country. Mission 22 has comprehensive treatment programs for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury at no cost to veterans. This is an American issue. No matter where you stand, there's a place for your support. Visit mission22.com to learn more.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.
Welcome back to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, where we have seen Eric Smith run a second dominating race. He's come home as the winner of the 2.4 hours of Spa, but we're going to give you a full field rundown. So Eric Smith comes home in first, Pete Parrott comes home in second, third place, and the last podium spot goes to Chuck Chambliss. Riley Thompson finishes in fourth, fifth goes to Ross Banfield, Richard McClure comes home in sixth, seventh Claude Belval, Thomas Peterson in eighth, ninth goes to Michael Lane, and Brandon Whitworth rounds out our top 10 and also is the last car on the lead lap.
First car lap down ends up being Carl Berg. He also finishes 11th position. He started 14th. Good turnaround for him. Mike Kelly, our points leader, comes home 12th position. Andy Banfield 13th. Nick Kuhn 14th. Rory Collins 15th. Danny Resser 16th. Lonnie Fitch ends up coming home 17th position. Daniel Knight 18th. And Oliver Mandrish, who was DQ'd at the very last minute after some contact with Mike Kelly, ends up 19th position, 2 laps down. Joshua Kanata rounds out your top 20, 2 laps down as well.
21st, continuing on with lap down cars, that is. Jason Wallet, Lynn Kenchko will be P22, P23, Terry Wellman, Simon Thorns, P24, P25 will be George Angus, P26, Eddie Hawks, P27, Marshall Williams, P28, Samuel Dowdy, P29, Mike Golightly, and P30, Julian Huxley.
Jose Pabon finish is in 31st. 32nd goes to Marcus Tracy. Craig Hawkins, 33rd. Eric Klein, 34th. James Dallin, 35th. Jonathan Diggs, 36th. Jerry Fulcorb in 37th. Stefan Wang in 38th. Well, now we're going to take a moment to talk to our race winner, Eric Smith, who has just run 2 absolutely fantastic races, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from him maybe just a little bit of the strategy. So, Eric Smith, are you there?
Yeah, you got me?
Yes, we do. And these 2 races back-to-back have been absolutely fantastic runs. And what is really the secret? Have you just been finding that great line, or did you maybe find something to set up on these 2 cars that have just found you this some amazing speed?
Yeah, this is kind of more of my cup of tea. Next time at Pocono, you'll find me around 9th or 10th.
Well, it still has been a great run, but what do you think are the challenges of Spa? It's normally considered a very difficult track, but you didn't seem to have that much trouble. But what do you think is the difficult part of this track, and how did you overcome that difficulty in this race?
Difficult part about this track, I was talking with my team earlier, it's kind of like Le Mans. It's so long, it's hard to tie together a good lap, and it's just seat time. I've probably put in 100 laps around here just for this race, and I've been on here this service for years and years, so I'll probably put in 1,000 laps here.
Well, we watched you a few times as you were going around the track, have some close calls with a few of these lap cars, especially a number of them spinning in front of you. But what was really going through your mind as you were trying to just cruise your way to this victory?
Yeah, I had a few guys spin it in poo on right in front of me. I was like, please stop. I hit the one on the white flag as well.
Hey, well,
just get out of the gas and see which way their car is going and go the other way.
Well, Eric, you said you're not feeling too great about Pocono. You're going to be running maybe around midfield. That we still have a long ways to go on the schedule. But is there any tracks towards the end of the schedule that you're kind of looking forward to?
Well, the setup will be fantastic for Pocono. I'm just not a very good driver. I know Andy and Chuck and Rick and Brian, all those guys are going to put in 2,000 laps onto that setup. So the setup will be rock solid. It's just me that can't drive those cars. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the road courses. Bathurst is going to be a blast. I like those cars and that track. F1 at Suzuka is going to be weird because I don't drive that car, but we'll see.
All right, well, before we let you go, Eric, we'll give you the microphone, give you the floor, and allow you to thank whoever you wish to thank for this, basically these 2 back-to-back amazing runs.
I'll just thank the other guys on the team, Clark, Rick, Andy, Chuck, Brian, all those guys that put in laps on this setup. You know, by the time we get to the race, we collectively put in hundreds of laps together on this thing, and yeah, it's great teamwork that we have.
Well, thank you so much for coming by and talking to us, Eric, and hopefully we'll see you again in a few weeks' time.
Yep, thanks.
That was Eric Smith, the driver of the number 32 machine and our race winner for the 2.4 hours of Spa. But now, Andrew's going to send it to you for some closing thoughts. I personally thought it was a fantastic race. I'd like to hear what you thought of this race.
It was definitely a great race to sit here and watch for a couple of hours. And, you know, anything could have happened at any one point. You know, just given the nature of this track, going up through Eau Rouge even the first time, we could have seen, for example, someone end up just wiping out Eric Smith. Quite honestly, it could have happened. It's just the nature of this track. But even just on lap 1, I was pretty amazed at how clean everybody was going up through Eau Rouge, down the Kemmel Straight, off into turn 5 at such high speeds. Everybody kept things clean, minimal contact, if any, and that was the name of the game all race long. It seemed like everybody was very clean, very respectful, and minus, you know, 1 or 2 instances of contact here and there, it was just, I think, the cleanest race I've ever seen held at Spa. That was definitely great racing from the entire field.
Yeah, it certainly was a clean race, and that's really just been kind of the hallmark of this series. Is all of these drivers are just fantastic drivers. They're all very clean and very respectful, and they always do a lot of give and take. We've seen really no major issues throughout this whole season. But gonna go to you, Trevin. It was a very long race, but these drivers did deal with the endurance factor and the fatigue factor very well.
Yeah, this track we were talking about is so difficult. This 19 to 21 turn track is really quite the one to test everybody here in this server. And, you know, just having to race this for 2 hours and 24 minutes was in itself a really difficult one. So great job to everybody here tonight racing, and, you know, looking forward to next week, or not next week, but next race at Pocono, and seeing how different drivers can prevail. As we were talking to Eric Smith, he was thinking that he didn't really had a lot of confidence going into Pocono, and, you know, maybe a different driver will prevail going into there, and maybe we'll get some shakeups in the point standings.
Well, that's going to all but do it for us here tonight. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all of our broadcasts. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official and on Twitter at LSRTV. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube as well and turn on your notifications to be sure that you never miss any of our broadcasts. On behalf of everyone here tonight and everyone behind the scenes at LSRTV, myself, Andrew Cardinal, Trevor Valderrama, Cisco Scaramuza, Evan Basoko, DJ Lyon, and Laura Lawson, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.